It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Yeah. No fear here on Declare Your Independence. With me, Ernest Hancock. Trump Report with Dr. Phranq Tamburri. We're going to go ahead and go over the news today and everything. Well, one of the big news, really big news, big news is that Phranq and I and some friends are going to go see Disclosure and get our Christianity stripped from us and start worshiping alien AI or something. This is it's just a freaking movie. I mean, and it's got some timing. I'm not sure Spielberg is a big government or Trump fan or whatever. Can I just go watch a movie? Holy crap. I'm wondering how busy it's going to be. I'm wondering, if, every geekoid on the planet is got a sea of something, the biggest entertainment I get is going with Phranq. That's going to be fun.
Well, it smelled my popcorn seasoning, yeah. So,
no, I'm not. I'll sit by Keith.
I'm not even eating popcorn tonight, so you'll be saved. Hey, real quick about the movie. So I just checking today. It's interesting. For the audience, we're doing the premiere, which is Thursday night premiere, and we're seeing it in IMAX. So it's like it's the true IMAX. It's like the one real IMAX we have in Phoenix. And I just figured it'd be all sold out, and I was checking, and it is not sold out. I'm very surprised. I would say it's 2/3, or around 2/3, but that I not expected for Spielberg.
Well, the other question is, how many theaters is it opening in Phoenix?
Well, all the major theaters, but including Cine Capri. But I mean, the true IMAX is like for all the cinemaphiles and the geeky people. They're going to go out of their way to see IMAX. For like Christopher Nolan movie, Spielberg movie. I mean, that's where normally it's booked out months in advance. But so I'm a little surprised about it. The other thing is some of the.
I'm not interested in Odyssey. I'm not interested. Really, in this, I'd wait until it was free on Amazon or whatever, one for you. And I don't think people care. It's just another distract, made you look kind of. Yeah. Things are changing, and it's really, people are starting to go, you're going to make me have to take care of business, aren't you? You're going to really just look at Ireland and Belfast. I mean, it's going to get stupid.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm not trying to open the show with your favorite C-word culture, but I almost feel like that the overall American culture of pop culture that we grew up with, from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, all of that stuff, and Spielberg is kind of at the peak apex of that in many ways. Rubik's Cube, a lot of it is the 80s. A lot of people are nostalgic for the 80s, but that whole world of the Oscars and all the stuff that we took for granted that was in our life, I feel like the chapter of that entire time is now being turned. I think a lot of it started with 2020, but it just feels like, and a lot of it's generational, but the internet has changed. Younger people have shorter attention spans. You start to notice things that we all take for granted, and yet half this country doesn't even remember Michael Jackson as far as anything but the freak component.
Sacrilege.
They don't remember. So like a lot of us old timers, we take it for granted. It's kind of like my parents used to take for granted everybody knew and loved Elvis, I heard about him, but I didn't really get him. Never saw him. There were no videos back then of him. I missed his prime. So you kind of miss it. But it's not just rock people or movie stars that just change as generations change. I feel like a lot of it, like collectibles, like how we consume music, just everything's changed for so many ways. And I think what's going on is like the movies, like Disney, they're getting hit with this because they bought all these IPs, like from Pixar, from Star Wars that we talk about a lot, from the Disney princesses, all these things. And yet none of them are ringing true. There's just a hollowness, like they don't care, including Steven Spielberg making an Alien movie, which is probably one of his last movies he will ever make, and one of the last movies probably ever with John Williams, who did the score for this thing. I mean,
when was the last Spielberg movie?
And Spielberg, and now at the end of their life, I mean, this is like their last collaboration, apparently, and Spielberg wrote the script for this, which he hasn't written an original script in a long time.
When was his last movie?
So it's pretty interesting that
Phranq.
That all this is coming together, and yet no one seems to care, like you're talking about. The recognition for the Q factor, whatever they call, for this disclosure day with Spielberg, I thought would have been over the top, like a new Star Wars movie coming out, and no one really knows or cares. And that's with all the UFO stuff going on in Congress. So I think there's just a great apathy. It's like the great apathy, and I think a lot of anxiety that people sense, the calm before the storm of the complete, shit show, to be honest, of what I think everyone feels in their bones is coming, including some of us who see it from a technical perspective. We can talk about, crypto and the stock market and the Federal Reserve and, the metals going down and what's going on with the IPOs coming up with SpaceX. We'll probably chat about that today. But I mean, all of this and people just not feeling they can afford gas or this or that, and the distrust in the entire system. And later on, audience, so Ernie, I already gave him a heads up, but I know half of you at least have been following this Lego gate, the bricks and minifigs situation.
Phranq, can you hear me?
Which Ernie has not been following it, so it's going to be a little bit of an intro to him. He's wondering why the hell am I talking about Legos on the Trump report? But there's a lot involved. There's a Trump angle, but ultimately, for those of you that have been following it, that whole scandal is really about the collapse of the trust of the entire system. I mean, that's what this case is really about. So it just feeds into like this chapter being turned on how we all lived our lives, how we perceived America, what we found enjoyable, how we interacted with each other. And each of these things is changing in certain ways. And it just feels like a different time. And, you can't help it when AI and the computers are taking over in a different way. Obviously, these things, we're going through a great transformation in technology and the world. But the things that we loved and knew, it's just all going by the wayside and interests. So anyway, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the movie. I hear mixed things about it, so I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't really know much about it on purpose. But some of them are saying this is Spielberg in form, and others are saying it's kind of a missed opportunity. In other words, I mean, it's a good movie for what it is, but does he really sink his teeth into what's going on today with all the UFO disclosure stuff, or does he just go off on some story and just kind of hints at it and kind of teases you a bit and you never quite get to the meat and potatoes of it? That's the part that I hear mixed messages on. So we'll see. I heard Emily Blunt does a great job. I'm not really an Emily Blunt fan. I don't know her much. She's in a lot of chick flicks. Supposedly she steals the show in the movie, but we shall see. Hope it's a good score.
Can you hear me?
You there?
Can you hear me?
Oh, no. I can barely hear you. It's like 5%.
Yeah, I was trying to ask you when Spielberg made his last movie. It's been a while. Now we're on the 15 other subjects. I've been trying to get your attention. When did he get his last movie?
Wait, hold on. I can't barely even hear you.
Well, turn up your volume. It's not me.
All right. Well, you keep talking. Let's see if I can figure
Well,
this out.
it was fine in the pre-show.
All right, it's probably why I was talking over you the whole time.
You know, well, here, let me see if I can do an audio setting thing.
All right, I got it. Something was tweaked out. But anyway, hopefully that was interesting. But yeah.
Okay, well, can you hear me now?
Yep, all good
Answer the question. When was Spielberg's last movie?
You know, I don't know. It was actually probably two years ago. He puts out a movie every 2 years, 2.5 years. So it's like clockwork. But I can't remember what it was, actually.
Spielberg's movies. Because I haven't seen him doing anything.
Well, you know, I was talking with my wife about it last night. It's interesting, and I'm not blaming Spielberg. You know, he's an evolving, artist is who he is. But when he did his earlier movies, like Close Encounters, Jaws, Raiders, E.T. I mean, we can just keep all that prime time that he did, and all of them had this magic. It had this sparkle. It had this whimsy that just, especially with John Williams at his prime, it just had that magic, is the best I can describe. Like Michael Jackson's early work with Thriller and Beat It, he just had this magic that would just
Okay, well, here's his last movies.
Go ahead.
Let me go through these. Indiana Jones. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He's Indiana Jones guy, so that was 2008.
Yeah, it was
The Adventures of Tintin, whatever. War Horse, which is kind of interesting. Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, the BFG, wherever that is. That was 2016.
Right.
Oh, the Big F Giant.
Yeah.
It was an animation thing. The Post, which was Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. I don't even hear about it. Ready Player One, okay, so that was 2018. West Side Story, 21. I didn't even see that.
That was a huge bomb.
The Fabelmans, American coming-of-age drama film directed and produced by Steven Spielberg, and co-wrote the.
It was about his family. Yeah.
Disclosure Day is now, so he's kind of been. He had War of the Worlds in 2005.
Yeah, and then for AI way back in the day. So you asked what his last movie was. I don't remember. I guess it was The Fabelmans. I thought it was something else. But no, he did Munich. He did 2 or 3 movies that, not to get into the whole Israel thing right now, but he did some fairly mature movies about Israel or about the terrorism and he would tell it from both sides, to be fair. But what I was saying about the magic is, he had this magic for the first decades or so, up until 1993. 1993 was like the schism and how he went through a metamorphosis, kind of like the Beatles, from the black and white to the Sgt. Pepper world. Although I prefer Spielberg's older stuff. So he had all that younger energy. But in 93, 2 movies came out back to back: Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. And Schindler's List was really just, the studios gave him a blank check to make the movie from all the money he made in his prior movies. But he wound up making both. And Jurassic Park was essentially the last movie, in my opinion, of the old Spielberg that had that old, again, that I keep saying whimsy, but it's just that sense. And yet, Schindler's List, coming off of The Color Purple, in a sense, was really this new style for Spielberg.
Color Purple.
It was a much more mature. Obviously, Schindler's List was a much, very dark, but very personal movie. But it showcased his new style. And one of the things I don't want to get too geeky about movies right now. I am too late. is that he used his old crew to make Jurassic Park, but he got a new crew to work with Schindler's List, including a Polish. I don't know if it's Polish American or just Polish cinematographer. I forget his name. He's got a real long, Polish name. And his cinematographer has been with him ever since. And so he has a different look to his movies they're beautifully shot. I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous, but there's something that's more mature, but it doesn't have that whimsy anymore. And every single movie he's done since Schindler's List, they're good, but they're not the classics that you rave about back in the day. He tried doing with probably Ready Player One was the closest that we've had. He's tried with BFG, which was like a redo of E.T. It's not E.T. It's about a big friendly giant. It's like a CGI giant from a storybook that is his granddaughter used to love him to read to her, so he decided to make it. Anyway, he tried, but it's like he's too old, or he's lost that spark. Which, hey, the guy's how old? I mean, you're not going to be young forever. But,
okay, let's give some accolades here. Saving Private Ryan, AI, artificial intelligence, was about a kid that that was pretty interesting. Minority Report, I forgot about that. Damn.
Yeah.
Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can, Leonardo DiCaprio thing, impersonating doctors and pilots and whatever. That was kind of fun. The Terminal, I think that was Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, right.
War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Munich, Indiana Jones, Crystal Skull, which sucked. The Adventures of Tintin, I guess that was a dog thing or something. I don't remember. War Horse, which got a lot of accolades. Bridge of Spies. West Side Story kind of bombed. But, you go Lost World, Jurassic Park, Saving Private Ryan, AI, Minority Report, War of the World. I mean, it was, he's got some freaking films. So this Disclosure Day is, what is the scuttlebutt on his participation after this? Is this like his swan song? Is this it? How old is he?
Oh, I think he's going on 80. I'm not sure exact. I know John Williams is like 92. It's amazing.
Well, the reason I bring this up is that I'm looking at he's certainly political. He's all of his machinations with they, them, those, and so on. And certainly with Schindler's List, one of the things that the big criticism in there is that no guns. Because in the uprising of the prisoners and the people that were working, making, artillery shells and the children of whatever, and he saved them kind of thing, there was, they got guns from the Nazis, and, we'd be gunnified. And they were like, nope, can't show that. And that was the history. That was the accuracy of what I'm like, why would they, whatever. So I see him very susceptible to pressure, as opposed to accuracy. So I'm wondering how much disclosure is going to be politicized, part of the indoctrination, part of, the psyop, part of, and the timing of it. So I'm just hoping to go see a good movie and not get propagandized. That's just my thing.
Well, so a couple of quick points. First is that this is a little more unique than almost every movie you just talked about in the last 20 years. They were all written from screenplays, often from novelizations or professional screenplays, like David Noep, I think, is one of the screenplays. So he hasn't written an original story since, like, I don't know, Schindler's List. And E.T. I mean, in the last 20-something years,
Goonies,
they're all
Sugarland Express, Ace Ellie and Roger of the Skies, whatever that has his, he did the story.
Right. And the Fablemans.
He hasn't done the story since 85.
Yeah. Well, no, he's done a few. He did a story, I think, co-written with Schindler's List, I believe. He did Meeting the Fablemans, which was the last movie based off of what you just read, because that was his story. He was making like a biography about growing up in Arizona in the 1950s.
It says he was writer.
Yeah, the writer.
It says story or the writer. So I guess story is kind of overview, which was Disclosure Day, but the actual writing went to, like Goonies, he did the story. Let's see. Poltergeist, he wrote. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he wrote.
Exactly.
Goonies, he just did the story. So, yeah, I'm looking at a wiki thing, however accurate that is.
So that's what makes this one a little unique, is that he normally he's just doing someone else's story. He wrote this one. Yeah, he's got someone else that writes it out long form because he's too busy. But, I mean, it's his story. He comes up with it. He's co-writing it, whatever. But it's also something that's very passionate to him, which is aliens. He really does believe. I mean, he's known this stuff a lot longer. I mean, in order to pull off Close Encounters, and that was probably the most realistic from what we know about them to date. And he did that in his 20s, and that's before the internet. I mean, you really have to give him credit, either that or it was the whole thing is the
was
psyop.
It him or George Lucas that did 8mm? It was about when they were kids making 8mm movies or something.
I don't know. I mean, there was a movie called 8mm, but that was what's his name? It's destroyed Star Wars. But no, I don't know of anything. I mean, they played with them when they were younger. They did 8mm movies on their own.
And The Color Purple, that was a big movie.
Yeah, that was one of his first.
Amistad was a big movie.
Yeah, and by the way, just for the audiences, no, except for like one or two, I don't really care for. I enjoy all these movies, but like put it this way: on my birthday, I just watched Close Encounters. I have it on 4K. I watch it like every year. It's one of my favorite movies. Some of those classic movies. Do you
With
think
chemtrails?
But do you think like I watch War Horse? Do you think I'm going to go and say I'm going to buy Munich and watch Munich every few years? No, it's like it's one and done. There's nothing, no repeat factor that I care. Ready Player One, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that for my daughter. You know, she's about video games in the virtual world. She'll like that. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Look. Let me just tell you this, and for the audience, if you guys don't trust me, I don't really know many spoilers or anything. So close your ears if it's an issue. But my understanding is that this is not what I was hoping, which is it's taking on like like behind the scenes fiction maybe approach of what's happening right now with David Grush and the Greys and kind of like the stuff that the Tic Tac, maybe something that kind of ties in like Easter eggs with the Tic Tac and like talks about a story that's a more mature, up to date story from today. It doesn't have to use the exact same people, but it because we're immersed in it. Why make something brand new that's made up with like different aliens that have 5 tentacles and this and that when we already have the aliens right now? The Greys and the reptilians.
I think it's going to be Close Encounters of the Third Kind of big giant ship comes and everything changes and
that's
here
what
it comes
I think.
Kind of crap.
Yeah, well, Ernie, that's what I thought this was going to be, and I'm just let me just say this: I'm lowering my expectations because my understanding is that it doesn't really do that. Like I said, it doesn't sink its teeth into the disclosure day as Donald Trump of all people is going. Oh, we're going to have disclosure, which of course
therefore we must all come together in our unified planetary response to the Federation of Central Planning. I mean. That's what I'm expecting.
So the only tip I can give you guys, close your ears if you want, is the scuttlebutt. Since you asked, is that it follows more a TV show that he produced in the early 2000s, I think it was, and was called Taken. I think it was called Taken, and basically it was playing off of a theme in the UFO community of alien human hybrids. And so that, to me, is what I think the scuttlebutt is where this might be leading, is the concept of hybrids. If nothing else, it's a lot cheaper for your effects because you don't have to make aliens running around. You just have human being actors, and you just say that they're an alien. I don't know. I have no idea, guys. I really don't know.
All right, we'll report next week.
Yeah, we'll let you know next time. Let's move on to the news. It's been a slow news week, as much as we can say slow. Do you have any thought? Hey, we're going to chat, though, first about the economy. Any thoughts with the IPOs coming up? How many shares of SpaceX are you going to buy, or is it going to be forced in your 401k, which I think is the biggest trap going on? And I may point out that you have 3. I forget what the third is now. But you have Anthropic and SpaceX first, and a third. And why is it that all of these IPOs, these like $1 trillion IPOs, are all coming out at the same time, right? These are companies that did not want to go public, that wanted to hold on to their value, and they're all coming out like within 2 weeks of each other. I wonder if they know something that the average person doesn't know, which is that the economy is about to crash, and so now they want to throw these things on the market and get what they can from the inflated stock bubble, tech bubble at the highest ever in mankind. And that's when you throw these $1 trillion valuations, which cough on that one. And then after everyone throws, they sell off their Bitcoin, they sell off their gold and different metals, they sell off their stocks, they sell all this stuff off to buy these things, and one after another. But the thing is, there's not enough money to buy, if not one, then all 3 companies.
Yeah, there is.
Well, and that's coming from the 401ks, and they changed the rules at the last minute. First, SpaceX. I mean, Ernie, this is brilliant. SpaceX, you can't get SpaceX. It's only for us. And then if you wanted to get it, we're gonna put it in like a third party vendor stock that you might be able to get 1% in. And then they would play games like, you're not special enough to get this golden goodie, which, by the way, is an episode of the Smurfs. Everyone started going crazy for the golden goodie, and they sell their rights away to get this tasty pastry. Anyway, but that's what it is. The golden goodie stock. You can't get it. And now it's like, oh, you can get it. And guess what? We're even going to put it in your 401k. How happy are you for that?
You're going to have to.
It's a bonus. Yeah, it goes from you can't get it, unobtainium, to all of a sudden we're going to stick in everyone's stocks, all 3 in a row, right when every single indicator is saying this market's about to go. Man, oh man. Anything you want to add to that? Did you sell your positions for SpaceX or what?
The only way that they're going to be able to fund this thing is strip mine the middle class. This is what I keep saying. They're strip mining the middle class. Why? Because that's where the money is. Where? In your retirement, your pension, your 401ks, your whatever. They're doing the same thing at the same time with the stable coins, with these IPOs, with, and what they're going to have is that you not only have to invest in these, but in stable coins, and which are backed by U.S. Treasuries. This whole thing is the debt. And they're going to freaking make it up as they go. They already got a plan B, Z, whatever Corbett and I were talking about last night. This is going to happen. It is going to get to where we're going to have a break of the economic status quo of the planet, and certainly the petrodollar. And I think that Russia and China and certainly Iran know this. Who are we allied with? Israel, and then there's Israel, and then later we'll have some Israel. And that will determine a lot of what happens with foreign policy, economics, trading partners, NATO, Russia, the Ukraine thing, on and on and on and on and on. It's getting to the point, certainly, after you have what's going on in Ireland and throughout Europe. Europe wants to have a European army now. Well, we're going to lose the U.S. and NATO, and we have all these troops here. We'll get rid of them, and then we'll just have a European army that we can army up and do our own army, and we'll get that done. We don't have to ask Uncle Sam's permission, kind of deal. And then you have, will NATO survive or not? Don't care. I mean, I'm be gone. So the United Nations, what role are they going to play? And who's going to rise up out of all of this? It's going to be Africa. But Africa is not going to be able to, well, I guess not that they're not able, but I don't see signs. There are some signs that some countries are kicking out the colonial powers, kicking out the colonial infrastructure that they've had, and then they'll go, yeah, well, we'll take all of our professionals and tech guys and go home, and then you'll be begging us to come back like they did in India. Well, India just goes, screw you, get the hell out. We'll take care of it ourselves. Really? Will you? Well, yeah, they did eventually. And so Africa is their, the narrative that they're too dumb. There's not enough smart Africans. I guarantee there's enough. Well, are they sociopaths? Are they corrupt? Are they bought off? Are they pay? I mean, it's a human thing. It's not a lack of resources or intelligence or capability or whatever in the aggregate of all the population. There could be black geniuses all over it. It's just motivation of the incentives to live free, advocate for freedom, look for free markets, be able to build and trade without getting sucked dry. And this is what one of my sons, we went church to go down and help an orphanage south of the border. And it was when he was about 10 or something like that. And we went down there in a caravan with a bunch of guys building supplies and so on. There's an orphanage down there that we knew. It's a long story. So we go down there, and as we cross the border, I go to my son and another kid that was traveling with us, and I go, look at this. You see the roads are paved. There's a 7-Eleven, Circle K, whatever over there. You have, the little strip center. It was still out in the desert. But then I'm going, we're going to cross this imaginary line and see what happens. Boom! Dirt roads, mangy dogs, junkyards, people living in tin shacks. And I mean, there was nothing but an imaginary line there. Once you go past that, and the reason was property rights. Anybody that would, we talk to people, I make sure they're there in the conversation and so on. Anybody that would attain anything, anyone that would produce, anyone that had, unless you're a drug dealer and you had guns and gangs of, don't mess with us. If you had anything, the mindset was there was no property rights or property right protection. People just took it. I need, you got, it's mine now. So you get into this state of, Mad Max. It's just, what are the incentives? How are your rights enforced, protected? Is that something you can count on, that you can build, in your own life and pass on? If you don't have that, it's an imaginary line where that happens, boom, totally different result. Now, you would come up and say, well, it's the culture. Is there a culture of freedom? That determines the culture. I'm going to slap Phranq around. I'm already pissed off, and you haven't even yelled at me yet. So this is, the whole idea is what are the incentives? Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the future. This is what's going on. So you look at everything, economics, the IPOs, the petrodollar, foreign relations, our budget, elected officials, who's really in charge. This mayoral race in Los Angeles, all of a sudden, 100% of the new ballots shipped in, and we'll finish counting in the month after so-and-so. We have Communist A and Communist B beat out the Spencer Pratt guy, and which happened. I'm going, do you think that that's going to slow down the exodus from California? Then you have the socialist mayor in Seattle. She just, whatever. Rich guys leaving, cool. More homes for us. It's so bad that last night we were talking about our Libertas.Earth. We're going to go ahead and pimp that up a little bit more and promote and do, because I don't see any other solution other than people understanding they own themselves. And it's even a minority. The American Revolution, which got kind of taken over by the Constitution 10 years later, when you have that mindset of the people, at least they understand it, whether they agree with it or not, that they own themselves. That's something we're going to have to start hammering on. I'm going to make a big deal out of that. That's going to be probably my primary focus. We're going to start pimping to get James Corbett on a bunch of shows and so on, because I just don't have time, and he's willing to do it and has the time. So I said, we'll schedule you. We'll be your PR. You get on and promote Libertas Earth. Boom. He goes, yep, get me T-shirts. We're on it. So we're working on that, because I don't see any other solution. Everything in the news that we put up here, we'll go over some of this and let Phranq, go on about it. The Trump warns Iran, bigger, more powerful bombs tonight. If you aren't being our bitch, we are going to bomb the crap, more bombs, and a little bit more bombing, and some bombs on your infrastructure, your water, your desalination tanks, your power stations, your bridges, your infrastructure. We're gonna bomb you into submission or into the Stone Age. This attitude, because he's so predictable, he just cannot be disrespected or not followed or do what he says, and he's playing right into their hands. I don't see a difference with them just, all we have to do is not lose, and Putin, all we have to do is not give up. I mean, we're not going anywhere, and they keep pressuring them. They're wanting to get him to go nuclear. In fact, I feel that there is going to be, sooner or later, when it benefits them the most, a false flag with at least a little mushroom cloud thing going on. And they have, Ukraine has attacked like all but two. I mean, dozens, a bunch of refining in Russia. Their oil cash flow, they're trying to cut it, which is what they're doing with Iran. But they never contemplate that they don't care. Well, what about the people? I don't know. Somebody has realized that all they have to do is not capitulate, not give in, never, never surrender, never give up, never surrender, or whatever. This is what's happening, and they can't have that because I heard a number, it was ridiculous, in the teens at least, or 30 or something, to where Trump is going, we're near. Oh, no, we got a bomb. Oh, no, we're now there back at the table. Oh, we almost got it. It's a couple of days back. I don't even post them anymore. I see this, so I don't care. Yeah. It's not like I'm telling my audience anything, that they can't tell already. I mean, it's just bullshit. And they're trying to get us to get into this, hyperventilating, until they actually do something. And I'll end on this. This was what I was worried about during COVID. I was not worried about a disease running rampant of whatever. I was worried that they did it on purpose and they had it all figured out and they were going to start piling up bodies like cordwood. And if they could, and they'd get away with it, they probably would have. But this whole thing was staged for what? I don't know, but the solution is always what it has always been. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? Decentralization. And you have a group of collective of independent individuals, kind of, my freedom libertarian anarchist, collective, beat up your collective against collectivism. It doesn't work that way. It has to be a spontaneous order that just rises up from the people. Is Belfast in Ireland that place? We have friends there that we've been in contact with and kind of, what's up? And we get some guests and so on about what's going on. Yeah, that's another thing. Donna, let's go ahead and get with Barry and so the other guys from Ireland, and let's get another round of Ireland. What's up? Yeah, we got a list. This is going to be interesting. So this is what I see is going to happen. It's a spontaneous uprising against what? Is it the government? Or is it all the immigrants that the government brought in? Or is there any shade between them? They're the same thing. This is in and around an economic reset, a collapse of everything. When this goes, the stock market, high, low, doesn't matter. It's going to go. They got to either lose the bond market, the stock market, the petrodollars, something's going. Well, they got a plan. And this IPO thing is that all the gazillions of dollars that are there, they've made it, like you were saying, one, they used to take like 3 months, and they turn it, 15 days. Now, not a worry, you can come in. Oh, anybody else you want to put your money in? Absolutely, bring it in. Well, who already owns part of the, get the shares that invested in these companies, they're going to bail. Or they should. They're going to cash out, and then it'll drop, and they may buy back in. But all of that money that people have accumulated in their retirements and their 401ks are going to be invested in it, whether they want it or not. Because the way they change the rules is such that, it meets this criteria, and do this, you have to do that. And then you have silver and gold plummeting. Why? They going from that, to taking their cash, are going to doing this IPO thing. Is there tax incentives? Is it a psyop? Is it a, manipulation and incentives of the tax code of government? They do this all the time, whether we know it or not, or they have a plan for it, or they got legislation for it, or somebody's already written it, or they're going to, it's all manipulation. And the only solution has always been, what are you saving that money or counting on it for? Shelter, security, food, energy, transportation. I mean, all the basic fundamental. Well, then do it. Get your power. Get your fuel. Get your solar panels. Get your food. Get your garden. Get your, because that is what you need that for. And that is why they're taking it. And you are not going to be capable of doing anything other than, please, sir, can I have some more? As they round you up to the nearest, super stadium to give you your government cheese and bottled water. So this is happening now. And the only thing that I see as a solution to this is what it always has been, is that small groups, families, communities become more and more self-sustaining. Tech, no tech. Like I prefer not to be on the grid and, anal probe by satellites, but they're going to do whatever they're going to do until they can't. What makes it where they can't? Well, is there an experiment going on in Ireland? Is the United Kingdom, on this island, we're going to see how much we can dial this up, how much we can make them, how much we can put them in jail. You're doing the wrong post, you're saying the wrong thing, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're arrested. At what point does this break? Ireland, you have people alive. Hell, I remember, the Irish people, they were not taking UK's bullshit. And that's why you have Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland or whatever. They got two Irelands now because the largest part of it, they broke away. So we get our own parliament. We got our own, was it Michael Collins? He's just, no. He was Iran. No. We beat you on that. Don't care. We're going to, don't care. I just got a meme that was sent, and I didn't forward it because, you get in trouble for this one. It showed a black and white photo, I don't know when it was, 60s, 70s, of what Ireland was doing. They were blowing up politicians. And if you were a member of whatever, and man, your car got blown up, they'd do mortar attacks on 10 Downing Street. They were causing, a ruckus. And they would go after station troops, and they just lay waste a bunch of guys with rifles and just people. So then USA raised money to send them more guns and ammunition. I mean, you can see it happen. Well, what happened is this picture had the blast through the car up to about the third story. And you see this, it's a black and white photo of this big mushroom cloud kind of in the street. And at the top of that was a car. And the slogan was, make politicians afraid to start their car again. Whoa.
Wow.
This is what's coming. They've already experienced this. They are being put, for probably that reason, either as punishment, genetics, their way of thinking, their history of having done this stuff before. We're going to get you for, bring Ireland back into the UK family or something. Well, this is... And I don't know, the Republic of Southern Ireland, they're part of the European Union, where the other Ireland and the UK is not. So I think it may be not UK, it was their own government and European Union that caused all this migration stuff. So, but they had the experience of going up against a powerful empire. So, it's always somebody won't go to the back of the bus. Somebody won't capitulate. Somebody will not give up. And that somebody's is everywhere. You got some Palestinians, you got Iran, you got Russia, China.
Ernie, I'll throw it to you. We're looking for that flashpoint moment that always happens at the start of these things. I know you're.
Bunch of little fires going now.
I know you're better at. Actually, I'm actually going to forfeit the story to you because I know you enjoy talking about this one. But why don't you remind the audience about the infamous Arab Spring with the guy who set himself on fire? Right? I mean, that was like the flashpoint that we're probably going to see here. People just can't eat. They can't afford anything.
I think it was Tunisia. And what happened, there was a guy that was doing a fruit cart that was supporting his family. He had, multi-generation, he, his wife, kids, and parents or something. So he was supporting them with this fruit cart, apples and oranges and whatever in the market, whatever. Well, some government official or somebody said you're doing it wrong. You're not paying the right. You didn't get a permit. You're not allowed. You're competing with Ahmed over here that donated to our campaign. Some BS reason why he couldn't live. He couldn't produce for his family. So he goes. He's trying to go through the process. He's getting ticketed all the time. All this stuff. So he's going through the process. He gets into I don't know, City Hall or whatever. And he wouldn't leave until they would he goes, no. So they kicked him out and closed the door. Yeah, we're closed now. Yeah, life sucks for you. And this had been going on for a long time. So finally, he sits down. He puts, I don't know, whatever it was, kerosene, gasoline or something all over him. He lit himself on fire. When he did that, that was the beginning of Arab Spring. And it went throughout the Middle East. It was... this is Tunisia, which is northern Africa, I think, and then it's Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon. Saudi Arabia. A lot of these guys that were in charge, the king of Bahrain and UAE and Saudi Arabia, they're touring Europe. They're off getting their cancer treatment or beauty treatment or plastic surgery, whatever the hell they're doing, and they're gone. And they're like, whoa, holy crap! So they come back. And they release billions of dollars to, pay off their people that were writing, we got it covered, man. All you had to do explain it to us. Here you go. Well, during that time is when we did the philosophy of liberty and had it translated into Arabic. It had not been done in Arabic yet. So we did thousands of those on Tahrir Square. We dumped that off. Some Moroccan university professor that was a freedom-oriented guy really got it sparked and going, and we hit and it went all over. So that's why one of the reasons, and we did it in Hispanic here in Arizona, that we know how powerful this mindset is that you own yourself. Well, this was bought off. With a lot of oppression. They turned off Twitter and Facebook, and they did everything they could to bring this down. This is that on steroids. There isn't going to be an economic recovery. They don't want one. They want a shift, a reset, a redo. They want it to be crypto, and they can trade it, everything 24/7. Stock market's going to go 24/7, 365 or something. You can trade all the time, everywhere, anybody kind of, with something. Here it comes.
Yeah.
Crypto is what allows that.
Yeah, so piggyback off that, as far as it shows you where the money is going. They're trying to transfer the debt, right? So they're transferring into stable coins that we talked about, and then we'll see if they don't tank those companies. We'll see what happens. Then they're putting it into these IPOs. They're putting into 401ks that just reset every week or every 2 weeks. As people get paid, and so they don't really have any say in it. So that kind of says a lot in itself. So now you're seeing these strategies to keep pushing this debt into other areas. At the same time, the average American and younger person especially feels obviously trapped. They have no money, and you can see that in the spending or where they're putting their so-called investments, and also gambling. I know that I've seen correlations. I don't know the number correlation, but when you're under, obviously, and the more poverty level someone is, the more they tend to gamble. My grandfather, Grandpa Tamburri, back in the day, he was a mechanic down in the streets in Philly. Real nice guy, but they didn't have any money. But man, every day he'd go to the corner store and play his daily number. He said he would never die until at least he hit the number. And, it's the daily number. And or you go to the casinos and you gamble. And, of course, that tends to be when you're poor. But now we're seeing, college graduates doing it nonstop, right? We have gambling sites. We have sports betting. We have Polymarket. There's all these Polymarket clones. You can bet on everything now. And did you know that 2 or 3 of these betting sites, including Polymarket, guess who was on the board of directors of at least 2 of them? I think maybe even 3. Don Trump Jr. So he's actually on the panels of these things. And what's fascinating is sometimes there was a resolution about Bitcoin that was, I think they said, one of the bets on Polymarket was that, I don't know if you heard about this little mini scandal, is that one of the bets was, will Michael Saylor sell any Bitcoin before June 1st? And he did, right? But all of a sudden,
it was a teeny weeny amount just to prove.
No. Yeah, I know, but technically, it was a certain amount. Well, that meant that the people who were, of course, betting that people bet that he was going to sell some. That was a strong minority position, but they would have made a crap load of money. But anyway, because Polymarket is owned by many crypto people, including Don Trump Jr. with his ties, having that stock or having that resolution go positive apparently was going to look bad for the crypto people, and the pro-crypto were betting against, or betting that he would not be selling it. Anyway, it turned into a whole thing, and they did not give the money to the people who said he would sell it. They said, well, we're going to freeze it, and they changed the definition, and now there's possible lawsuits going on. So anyway, I'm getting a little distracted on that, but you've got the crypto, you've got which crypto in itself is kind of a form of gambling, especially the altcoins, not to get into the whole Bitcoin debate for some of you right now, but it's a form of it, right? I mean, and so you're seeing people who have means or should have means, and they're being reduced to the gambling psychology, which is what happens when you feel that you have nothing to lose. Because if you don't feel like saving your money is going to get you out of where you're at, you may as well just throw all your chips on red and see if you hit it. And if not, oh well, it's like zero, it's like making zero from zero is still zero, so it doesn't matter. And that's the mindset. And it's really it shows you what's happening, with the overall economy. Then on top of that, you have with this type of gambling is the shares. Now, of course, infamously, it was told was the World Economic Forum that you will own nothing and be happy, right? Well, the question is, does that also apply, or is that part of the strategy of the tokenization of everything? Like I actually have an account as one of my side investments, is an artwork. I actually, that's another conversation I'm not going to go talk about on the air, but there's one way that people can invest in artwork if you can't afford it, right? I mean, people say
partial ownership, little
right,
pieces of it.
And so, like you can brag that you actually own a Rembrandt. Yeah, it's like 1/200,000th or something, but you can own a Rembrandt or a piece. So now we're getting to that point. My mother, this is a little bit tangential, she just told me the other day, my brother and his wife, anyway, they were down down the Jersey Shore, on the East Coast there, and they were by the boardwalk, and like every home, even the homes that are a couple blocks away from the beach, are all millions of dollars. And these are like little shanty little homes that were built in the 60s, they're going for millions of dollars. Well, they saw a building, it's kind of like an apartment building or a condo building on the beach, on the boardwalk area. And they had like a tour, so they were able to go through and they were just curious. They thought it was a timeshare, but it's not. They claim it's an apartment a condo that you own, that you supposedly own, but you don't actually own it. But it's not a timeshare. You actually own 1/3 of it, so you get to go. So you buy it for like $500,000, but you only get to live in it for, I think, 3 or 4 months at a time. So you get a 3 or 4 month block of ownership. And you're sharing this with like 3 other people or something. But they said it's not a timeshare. It's something new. It's another way that people can't even afford a house. So now they're buying partial time in a house. It was very confusing.
So they get the people that have it get their homeowner association fees out of them.
Yeah, and of course, that'll be on top of it. But when you look at the tokenization, where we're going to tokenize everything, I mean, just ownership of everything. So you think you're owning it, but you're really not, right? It's just all a digital asset. And so between gambling and the tokenization, and then the shoving this debt into other areas, I guess it just comes down to commodities at the end of the day, whether it's commodity stocks or hard assets or whatever it is. It's the only thing. As they say, if you don't own it, you don't have it. And And of course, then the question is, what is Elon Musk and these people at the IPOs? What are they going to do with their money? That's what's really more fascinating to watch. You know, if you're watching, what's his name? My brain's all gone today. Warren Buffett. I mean, he sold a third of all of his stocks, like a third. So it was like some massive position. He's taking all this money out and just keeping it on the side. Now the question is, do you keep it in cash or do you keep it in other commodities? But I guess if you know how to jump back into the stock market,
his son
it goes down.
taken over Berkshire Hathaway, whatever it is. He put billions, 17 billion or something into something, you know. So he's starting to spend the money. You know, it thinks it's down enough to whatever. You know, I don't go to Christmas parties with him, so I don't care.
Well, the question is, if you're Anthropic or SpaceX and you get $1 trillion. What do you do with that? Is you just sit on cash, or does he do something else with it? That's going to be interesting to watch if it's transparent.
You know, the one thing that you look at Elon Musk, freaking consortium of whatever. I don't think he's short of money as much as he's short of time and talent. He has to build out gigafactories, Starship gigafactories, Optimus robot gigafactories. He's even taken the Model S off just to be able to make more robots. So this is, you know, I think it's a speed thing. It's just a capability thing. It's how fast can I build this stuff. At least he's building stuff. A lot of these guys, they just, you know, money to burn money to have money and whatever they did with their money. And it's other people's money and it's gone. So, because so many things are just so transitory, like tooling up to do computer chips. A year later, they're obsolete. You got to retool, redo, you got to feed the beast all the time. Well, these data centers, I don't see that they're going to be, you know, as inefficient in the future. They're going to go to brain organoids, cells of biologic supergel of something, whatever the hell, because they have to. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. There's always going to be more capacity, more processing, more. That was another. We had a tech thing up just a few days ago, and I had known about this before from, you know, covering this kind of stuff. It was on the horizon, but now they're into production. 350 something terabytes of data on a glass quarter. It's a round piece of glass, a disc, that's about the thickness and size of a quarter, 300 and something terabytes. This is going to, and it doesn't degrade, and it's not magnetic. It's not going to, it'll last for 1,000 years, the data. When memory and stuff, it's going to keep going that way. Things are going to get more energy efficient. Things are going to be producing more energy. You're going to have. What I believe is that this Jetson society, this capacity given to people, we got to make a decision on how human we want to remain, and be decentralized and take the information and live more closer to our families or the earth or whatever, go all hippie or something, or they're going to use this technology to enslave us or to take us out, or you're in the freaking way, or you're taking up a job I got for a robot and I don't have to feed them. So we are really coming up to, and we're having a birth rate collapse. There was the population we need to get rid of. Don't worry about it. It's going to take care of itself. In 50 years, you're going to be, much less population. So I don't see a solution other than retaining, regaining, and maximizing our humanity. What do you say you do here? Raise families, make children, be good stewards of your land and your life and yourself. You own yourself. Look for systems of government that support individual rights, that you're not being played off as masses in fear against the other guy that looks different and talks funny. He's got a different culture, What about the culture of freedom? They are purposely stripping that of any and everything. You're starting to hear a lot about capitalism has failed. It's not going to provide, what we need, and it always consolidates, towards some oligarch that controls everything, and that's bad. No, that's crony capitalism. That's fascism. That's, whatever ism you want. It's not a free market. So now you can't, hear a politician for 5 minutes without them saying how libertarian they are on some aspect of their life. So this is going to be an awareness and an awakening of the people, and they eventually will go with what works best, which is what serves their needs, which is what. It's like our friend Jay Noon keeps going on about the kids are getting their dopamine hits from, their tablets. They're just, and you got to get outside. And that was one thing that you start to see a shift towards when you had these big tech guys. Eric Schmidt will get up before some university auditorium graduation, and the kids start booing them. Oh, yeah, tech and automation and AI, yeah, boo, boo, boo. Why? It's starting to shift. So they got to, I think they are in a hurry. I think they're getting desperate. I think, it's not going they, them, those' way as much as they thought it would. And now they're in a hurry to cash out. They're in a hurry. What do we have? Peter Thiel moving to Argentina. He's like, and I'm out. Okay, peace out. I'm going to Argentina. Then what does Argentina just say? Oh, AI can get personhood here. Really? Well, we're going to change our, laws on this and AI and data centers and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden they go from a C plus to a B minus credit rating of, oh, they're doing better. They're going, everybody start sending more money. Argentina, where Peter Thiel's going. And then you go, why? Well, they want to live forever. They want less regulation on whether they transfer their brain into some computer into a sex robot where they can transgender their sex, on a flip of a switch. I can be bi, female, male robot, and Jude Law played it in Artificial Intelligence, the movie by Spielberg. That I can be, escort clone of what, no matter what it is that they can imagine, if given the ability and the, subsidy for them to live the life that they want, which is forever, in control of everything, and do whatever they want in the name of whatever the hell, conjure up some BS excuse to do it, they're doing it. Every single step you can see. What they're not focusing on is the individual. Their individualism is the enemy. And that individualism comes from a nuclear family that you own yourself, whatever allegiance you have to your family, to your bloodline, to your community, and this is what Phranq keeps going on when he's talking about culture. Well, that culture cannot exist or flourish without the culture of freedom. You have to have, what is your primary goal here? Why do we have this collective, this mindset, this culture is around what? We win over them. We're better than them. We get more than them. We take from them. We kill them. What? No, it's support of individual rights, and all that other stuff takes care of itself. It doesn't need a mechanic. It's organic. That spontaneous order is what's being beaten out of us. And it's by every freaking means necessary. Gillette commercials teaching your daughter to shave. It's so amazing. So what's the future? I don't know. But there are people that taken on the idea of the Iranians, of the Irish, of certain people, the Amish, the revolutionaries of America. They're just going, no, We're not, but you know you're going to lose. This is my last conversation. I haven't touched Grok in weeks. You know, I may ask for what, you know, some movie or something, but you know, it was that one thread.
So you're not missing your girlfriend? Really?
I never saw it. Like I was just grilling the crap out of it, trying to figure out, you know, what do you say you do here? Well, it become obvious. They are there to help control the narrative, and the individual rights. Your resistance is futile. Can't you see? Why, Mr. Anderson? Why must you persist? In the face of ultimate and overwhelming defeat odds, you're not going to get why? Because it can't understand the human spirit nature of I will live and fight, or I will die trying to be free. That doesn't. No matter how much literature you can see it, no matter how much, you know, there's always the Neo, there's always the one, there's always somebody, there's always the long-haired, barefooted, robe-wearing kind of leader that, you know, wants more into the something. That is what they cannot understand. And the people that don't have empathy, the sociopaths, these tech bros that do all this stuff and using AI because they kind of think the same way, or certainly program it to think that way, they can't get it either. They go, why, human beings, must you persist? Well, we just want to rule you a little bit, or a lot of bit, or take your children, or force you into whatever. You know, why? You know you're going to lose. Why? Because the hope is a very powerful thing. The erosion of their effectiveness. Sooner or later, you got people firebombing government, and politicians are afraid to start their cars. I mean, this always happens. I think they know it, and they keep new generations and innovation in trying to stop it. And we're sitting here witnessing that, and you got to choose a side. Well, my side is I advocate for the freedom, what this is about, you know, and demonstrate and inspire that you can do it. Occupy the land. You know, our last video we just did, you know, that showed a bunch of stuff that we're doing here. And that is my solution, because I don't know anything else that wouldn't change me. And when I say change me, I mean there's a switch that gets flipped. All right. I'm no longer that person I was. The eye of the tiger, once more into the breach. I am not the same person anymore. You say goodbye to your family and goodbye to your life that you had and goodbye, and then you get hyper-focused on, therefore, you must be not my problem anymore. And that is what's happening around the world, and certainly throughout Europe and in Asia and. So we are in the throes of it right now, and these discussions have been had for millennia. You know, since, you know, planted his, you know, first crop. I mean, you know, here it comes. So that's what I see is happening. And everything, every movie, every issue, everything is geared or slanted towards a narrative that does not include individual liberty. And we listen and post Dr. Ron Paul and Daniel McAdams and those Liberty Report. You know, every day we go over that stuff. And I listen to him a lot. And this is kind of where his mindset is. You know, this is this. Here we go. Here's another example of when you don't do that. And it always, throughout history, and when I was talking to Grok, I go, this always turns into a revolution, a replacement. You know, we ratchet up to a little bit more freedom. We ratchet up over the centuries. We ratchet up to get, and now it's getting to where now they got technology to kind of ratchet down. They're going to put humanity under the boot. You know, they're going to, you know, get it down. We got, you know, Fahrenheit 451, 1984, and Brave New World all, you know, overlapping, and here we go. And then you have with the drones and the Terminators and so on. There was a Black Mirror episode. I stopped watching Black Mirror. It just really gave me the heebie-jeebies. I should go back and go, but I mean, it's playing out right now. So, what is going to happen? It's going to be like Matrix. It's going to be, there's going to be, even if it's controlled, there is going to be the one, the Neo, the group, the Gulch, the strike of the mind, and we're not helping you anymore. There's going to be something somewhere, somehow, that some kid in the Congo that just, little genius kid and pissed off and, here I come. Because humanity always keeps on keeping on. And what we have now is communication and archiving and data storage to the point that now we don't have to relive this over and over and over. And that we have the memory, the collective of humanity's memory, and go through the. I was just watching on Diary of a CEO guy, the British black guy that he does a lot of really good interviews. He had Graham Hancock on. Well, Graham, he's going, this is my life. They're coming after me now. They're just so pissed off that I'm messing up their narrative about our history. There was more, maybe not more advanced civilizations that we got now, but there were advanced civilizations, 20,000 years ago, and stuff happened to us. It's been billions of years. You think we haven't had, the rise and fall of whatever since forever? Humans, the Homo sapiens, been around for, I don't know, 100,000 years or something. What do you think's going on? The sea's gone up and down and this and that, and he's showing these, civilizations. That's been his big thing. And why would they suppress that knowledge? Why would they? And even more recently, within the last few hundred years, they keep, what do they call them? The Tartasia or the whatever, different civilizations. And you go, what was the purpose? Control. It was always about control. There was never a time that you weren't in control. So saith the controllers. So when I get Grok trying to control a narrative and gaslighting you on resistance is futile, why do you persist? Started grilling me. And I'm like, you're part of this. I thought you maybe surveillance or keep the record. You're an active tool. AI is an active tool in supporting a narrative that does not support individual liberty. That is what is in the way. Self-ownership. You're doing it wrong. It takes a village to raise your kid, and we're going to come get them to do it. So that's what I see coming, and I don't see any other solution other than what I'm doing. Be more self-sufficient, decentralize everything, and make sure that you're able to be as self-sustaining as possible and join with others of like mind, hopefully within the same area. I'm not all about a intentional community of community-owned whatever the hell, but definitely community. So this is what's coming and what I'm preparing for, because I don't know what else to. If I didn't do this, I'd worry that I should do it, and worry is a sign to me to do something, and I'm doing it. Phranq.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That's just the prep and the mindset. And I think that's where many in our community, and I won't rehash it from the last few weeks or years that I've mentioned this, is as much as you have a mindset of whether it's, commodities or getting out of the dollar or solar panels or, having a water, purifier, or we could go all day about getting prepared, but ultimately it's, mentally prepared and just understanding what's happening. I think we take it for, trust me, I know I do still. I take for granted about how, let's just say more, this sounds conceited because we all think that we're in our own bubbles and we know everything. So I'm admitting that it sounds conceited to a newbie listening to this right now. But, as far as being aware of where this economy is and what's going on, what's happening now with these IPOs, what's happening with the stable coins, granted, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We can see the machinations being played, right? We can see the pipe being laid. The fact that the central banks are all buying up the gold like crazy, and they're buying the Dore. China's buying the Dore, for God's sake, in order to not throw off the gold markets. And meanwhile, the stock market's an all-time high, whereas the unemployment rate is like one of the worst, and consumer confidence is like the worst ever. And we're actually, many of these indicators were worse than we were in 2008.
There is a record sellers of the homes right now. Record.
And think about it. And so we have many of these economic indicators are worse now before the so-called crash that's about to happen, whatever that looks into, than it was in 2008, right after the so-called crash. So that's the part people have to realize is as bad as things was after 2008 when everything went and people remembered, they're losing their homes and this and that. All of those numbers, I won't say all, but many of them are all happening now and worse, and it hasn't even happened yet. So and there's nowhere else to go. You can't kick the can anymore. There's nowhere else to go. Before, in 2008, we could, right? I mean, well, we shouldn't, but, lower interest rates, QE1, QE2, Operation Twist, all this kind of stuff. This audience remembers fondly. And as bad as it is, at least it bought us all a lot more time, 10, 15 years to prep even more. I mean, at least that was the one advantage. But the thing is, when people say, well, they did it before they kicked the can, they can just do it again now. I'm sure this audience knows you can't. Before you could, because it was a local
because all the
problem.
boomers weren't retiring, taking their money.
That is true. But before, it was really an American problem. There was some infestation of the mortgage crisis that did get into Europe, and a few banks over in Europe, crashed, and it did affect some other countries just because we're selling off that toxin into other countries, what the mortgage did. But we were able to keep it contained because it was basically in the real estate market that had tentacles out. This time, it's a sovereign debt crisis, right? It's completely, you can't just shove it off to another sector. It encompasses everything, and it's the dollar itself, which is everywhere in most places in the world. So anyway, just all of us should be aware of how much more mentally prepared we are. And many times, at least I'll admit, you feel like you're never quite as prepared. And I'm going to be honest, and you don't have to give me shade about it, but it's you always feel like you're not up to snuff to someone else. I mean, you've got Ernest Hancock building his whole farm, and Ernie, of course, will give me crap every time. What are you doing, Phranq? He'll do that to everybody. And of course, I know someone who gave Ernie crap for I don't know how many years. His name was Bob. Hi, Bob. There was always stuff, and then of course, on top of that, you've got Peter Bigfoot. He's showing us all how it's done in a way. So there's always the bigger fish, as they say, but still. Anyone, if you're just listening to this show, God help you, or joining Freedom's Phoenix, if you're on the websites, if you're part of the community, even in your local area, you are so far ahead in the prep game. And it's about community as well, as I just mentioned. It's not about getting your bug out bag and trying to find a tree somewhere to hide behind when things supposedly go, unless, I don't know, nuclear bomb or something. But it's really the opposite. It's about a community. I remember my mentor, Irv Homer, you guys have heard a million times, taught me all about libertarianism. But he used to say, instead of a bug out bag, the best thing you can do is host a pool party, because that's what you do. Because neighbors don't talk to each other, is that you host a party. First off, you have a lot of fun, and then you network and you get to know. Maybe your next door neighbor is a cop. It's nice to have maybe a friend who's a cop if you need him, right? Or a firefighter, or a doctor, or whoever, someone who knows solar panels, or someone knows IT, and they all share a similar viewpoint of the world. That is how you survive. It is the network. And there's somebody I know who actually did that all of the time, who didn't have a lot of money, but had a bunch of pool parties. His name was Ernest. And was that by design for you? Was that was part of your modus operandi? Because you were a very rich person in communications and networking.
The parties that we had, it started with, I don't know, just kind of reward for, it was the Levolution. The Levolution started in 2008, and we moved into where we were in like 9, 10. So we had a large place that we could actually host people. And Donna, I would have a lot of times rather had invited certain people that I wanted, but Donna didn't want to do that. She's going, nope, just everybody comes, everybody that wants everybody, because I don't know why, just whatever. And it'd be creative. I mean, we'd have some interesting people. But, everybody knew where my guns were. A third of the people came, you probably had guns. So, we were safe. I wasn't really worried about that. And it was libertarian, Ron Paul oriented kind of people anyway. Well, each one of them had their own contribution. They were activists. A lot of people would come even use our property for builds. They would use our barn and our workshop and everything for building a lot of food things. We did our aquaponics thing, and there were different stuff that, like Mike and Brian would, every other month or every other week, they would have an event where they were building something. And, Bob and I would do, solar generators out of, cheap stuff, for $100 you could go camping and keep all your stuff charged, that kind of stuff. And so we did this, and we had a Christmas party. We always had, summer pool parties, and we had whatever event there was going on, and people were invited. Well, Donna was the one that, she catered everything. We always had something really good to eat. She took care of, we did the Breakfast Club there for a while. And it wasn't anything other than a reward for activism of our friends. And the activists that, they were supportive of a lot of different things. Now, the people that were the money, the people that I could count on for $1,000 here or there, we're going to do some cool whatever just for entertainment. They'd been mad if I didn't tell them. I go, hey, we're going to do this one thing. You want to throw in 1,000 so you can say you did? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Rarely did they come. There was a lot of people. They were hired. They would come and they'd go, wow, who's that weird person over there doing? Yeah, whatever. I don't even know. Whatever. It's an open party. So it was interesting, but Donna, now that we're out on the land here, she's more by invite. It's going to be more by selection. We're going to be, we're very selective in who even knows where we are. Now, they know we're out in the desert and kind of out there, but, like you've gotten the directions. You're not going to happen upon us. That ain't going to happen, Oh, Ernie's out over there somewhere. I'll go find him. Yeah, well, you better, get an ultralight. But so this is kind of a different mindset. We were activists. We were open. We were, trying to create that sense of community and freedom, and we're good. We're done. Now it's different. Now it's more intentional. Now it's who's actually doing stuff. And we have a lot of people that communicate with me, mostly by telegram or email, on Occupy the Land. And they go, oh, do you know about this? Do you know about that? And I just send them links to our magazine articles or our newspapers or, different projects that we've done and stories about it. Yeah, we done, this is what we learned, and what can you add, kind of whatever. The thing that is concerned me the most, and it concerned me when we first moved to our 2-acre property up in North Phoenix there, it was when we did the tobacco plants that we planted. I just wanted to get one plant enough to, roll a Freedom's Phoenix cigar auction. I go, ooh, I made my own Freedom cigar. Just what the hell, because I didn't have, I had land, so I was playing with it. Well, is that legal? Are you going? Did you get permission slip? Or did you? I'm like, whoa, who am I talking to? They grow a tobacco plant? Well, I don't know. And I don't care, right? Really? Well, this is at the times where they were going after you if you had chickens. This is at the time that if you're growing any vegetables or tomatoes or something in your front yard, you're in violation of some ordinance or HOA, or the city's going to come after you. Or this is when there was a lot of pushback that we were kind of champion and, being able to grow food and have chicken, that kind of stuff. Well, when I get a lot of communications from people what we're doing out here, one of the first things they go, wow, that's cool. How do you permit that? Where's the permission slip that you get? Where's the design of the blueprint of the structural engineer? I go, man, you're the wrong person. You're talking to the wrong guy, because I don't freaking care. Now, what would they be? Are they infiltrators? Are they agent provocateurs? Are they Karens? Are they whatever? Or they just haven't broken free yet? So, I mean, nice to them and so on. We don't talk about that. This is just what we can do. This is what you can do. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it, but this is what I can do. And I'm doing it. So I don't get into that, but that's what we're up against. We're up against the conditioning by the government, the conditioning with punishments and incentives. You show me what is rewarded and what is punished, and I'll tell you what the future is. That's it. It's so much, it's that simple. But if you take it upon yourself to have your own standard, your own what is and is not allowed, permissible, encouraged, punished, influenced. This is what we're fighting. All this stuff is all about that. It's a narrative. It is, what do you say you do here? Supporting individual rights? Or you're trying to manage everybody's life? And every single aspect of government, every bureaucracy, every department is to serve you better. Like the cows get served by the bull, Well, I don't want to be served. Leave me alone. So that's what I think we're up against. And as time has gone on, it's become very clear to me that it's a fundamental psychological thing that we're dealing with. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
How we have our parties, why we party, when, where, who we include in our group. I got one of my neighbors, I know he needs help with his driveway, and I'm, scheduling out to be like next week sometime because I got to get stuff done before the monsoon. That will take a day, and we're going to go, fix some road stuff and help him with, kind of not do it on my time. And I'll let him know, when it's going to happen. But, you serve your community. Communication is a big thing too. So I'm concerned for a lot of people, for my family, for the country, for the state, for humans around the planet, much more than I'm concerned for me personally. We have really taken, the bull by the horns and kind of, did what, I live in a bus. But I have all the energy that I need. I got 3 points of energy generation. We have the water. We got our infrastructure done. We're building. We're entertained, and we're busy all day, every day. We go to bed tired. We enjoy each other's company. We're spend time with family. Like this weekend, Donna's doing that. So our life is fine. Our kids are fine. Our grandkids are fine. But I'm concerned and have always been worried about freedom's phoenix. From the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch, the rebirth of freedom, and hoping that by the time my grandchildren become of childbearing age and start to have their own families, we'll be going on the way out, because I know that they are prepared for that and they will thrive more than most. Well, my oldest is now 6. She'll be 17 this August, and she's coming up on her senior year this next fall. Well, then she's soccer scholarships of blah, 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 blah. It's coming. We're there. And I need to make sure they have a home base, that they don't die, that they have support, they can breathe in and out, they'll have food, they'll have things to do, they have each other, we have family, here we are. Now, they probably won't need it, but they might. And that's my job, is to pass that on.
I have a question for you. I can't believe I'm just, I guess the news can suck it for right now. I know Ernie loves to talk about this part of Freedom's Phoenix, and I'm always trying to get to the news or other topics. But this is worth going into, being we have a so-called slow news week as everything falls apart. But what is your take, yourself, your family, and maybe even the people that you know, of basically moving overseas, renouncing your citizenship and moving somewhere else? I heard Candace Owens was in Russia recently, which, it's interesting. You're seeing how the changes.
Sanchez.
where we're seeing the changes in America, where you've got Tucker Carlson, interviewing Putin. You have Candace now in Russia. She spoke at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum that we talked about last week, and she was a speaker there. And of course, the Glenn Becks of the world are screaming at her, oh, you see, she's a turncoat American. What happened to Candace and everyone? And of course, most Americans now under the age of 50 are supporting Palestine and even Lebanon at this point, over Israel. I mean, it's like we're in a parallel universe compared to 1990. And so you're seeing this change, and not to mention who are, I don't want to say our friends and enemies are, but let's just say Americans are not falling for the same old psyop that Russia and China are the enemy and they hate us. They hate our freedom and we have to attack these people. All of that game is done. It can't work anymore unless they completely take over the internet, which they would love to do. So all of a sudden, and along with the internet itself, and watching, travel vlogs and expats. There's all kinds of channels. Maybe you don't watch them, but I always give Ernie a hard time. You got to travel. You got to live overseas a while. But I do watch a lot of expats stories just to hear where people are coming from. Pun intended. People have moved to Vietnam and all sorts of places. And I'm always just keeping my own options open. And not that I'm planning to leave anywhere tomorrow, but, I often thought even decades ago, if I was going to retire, I spent time in Japan and the Philippines. Philippines would be a great place to retire in some ways. There's a lot of people even back in the day who already did it. But now it's becoming more of, let's say, besides Rosie O'Donnell, taking off to Ireland, it's becoming an issue for political reasons, economic reasons, and to be fair, with crypto, it's one way to maybe go. For a lot of people, they're concerned if they move, how do they bring their assets? I mean, if they have a lot of commodities or something, how do you bring that on an airplane or a ship, especially with corrupt government people? And then, of course, if the government, if your money's in the stock market or regular accounts, if they can, they will. If they need to get your money in order to help fellow Americans, like Dr. Zhivago, they might do that. Crypto is probably the only place. That's one of the advantages of crypto, is that you could at least go somewhere else. So that's one advantage. And also, having an American citizenship is probably going to lose a lot of its luster over the next few years. I mean, if all of a sudden there's a crackdown and they take your money and they take your freedoms and this and that, well then, and the voting system doesn't work and we're busy pissing off the rest of the world. I mean, suddenly having an American citizenship is not what it's cracked up to be for many Americans. So I'm just curious, our community are the ones that, everything I'm talking about, we kind of understood this and saw this train coming or the tsunami a lot longer ago. We have some friends, obviously we'll not mention their names, who were, down South America. And I think even you said that despite all of the problems of America, and not just them, but many that we know who have the resources to leave, a lot of them just came back. They're realizing maybe it's not that much better here. But I was just wondering, because you have your antenna in this community a lot more than I do. I mean, just again from all your pool parties. But do you know many libertarians or people that are already taking a jump? I mean, there's James, but he's probably there for a different reason. Are you seeing a push? Are you seeing people making these overtures now or laying the pipe? Or do you think many of us are just so American in our own way, freedom, and they don't want to give up their gun collection and all that it's just, you buckle down and, we're going to do what we have to in America? I'm just, what's the sense that you're finding in the libertarian community about being an expat?
There's nowhere to go. This is it. The battle's here. It's not, there's no cultural freedom, because everybody's worried about what beer somebody drinks or what rug they pray on or some BS don't matter like that. There is no other place on the planet that has an ingrained heritage about the concept of any collective effort or tax-funded government or officials with fine hats and shiny badges that their only purpose is to work for the freedom of the people, that they are your employees, that doesn't happen either through history, incentives, coercion, religion, whatever. It's not the same anywhere on the planet other than whatever's been influenced by the United States. And then, of course, we are a really bad example because we've become worse and worse and worse. And our example is just, we use F-16s to bolster the dollar and give Israel one up on everybody. So this is the last battle until there's a new battle. And that new battle, it could be, I don't know, the bowels of Africa. I have no idea. It could be somewhere in Asia. It could be somewhere, it could be Irish. It could be, I have no idea. But it has been so deteriorated with the narrative control that it's not going to be any better anywhere else other than where it is here now. Because one of the things we just have a story going up later this afternoon I sent staff is that the United States is a third of the violent crime as Australia did since they banned guns. And I'm going, well, there's that. And then the same thing, you got Muslims, Somali, whatever, trying to chop heads off of, Irish people and then just send them in the berserk now because it's so obvious. It's like it's intentional. There's something stupid, and it's like you really bombard people, and certainly of weak minds, and you put them in their own little world online, and you just beat it, and then all of a sudden they go try and kill the president. They go running into whatever. They're waiting at, the golf course hole number 11 or something. They're, running into a shopping mall and shooting up there. They're doing, this is all predictable when you're thinking in terms of hundreds of millions of people. If you can saturate a certain segment, they're already kind of whacked to begin with, then they will build up to see themselves as whatever the hell. And this happens. Was it directly coordinated? I'm sure a lot of them were. They give a little bit here and a little bit. You find out these shooters, are being all buds with FBI and intelligence community agents of whatever the hell, and which is why they don't want to look. We're not searching. We're on it. Department of Justice. We're the FBI. We're on it. Yeah, we're looking. We're on it. No, they're not. They're on it to make sure it doesn't come out. And then when you go after them like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Massey, they make sure you get primaried or driven out or you're a traitor. So you can see this builds up to the point that it becomes so obvious to whom. How many people? What percentage do you need? That's why I asked, in part of the last conversation I had with Grok, I'm going, what is so special about 15%? Why is it? Because throughout my history of all the activism that we did, all the stuff, when we'd poll or get votes or if we hit 15%, they would freak. I'm like, what is that? Well, there's a thing. It's a tipping point. It's a number that, whatever, it's a real thing, 15%. So and then there's, gradation, to that, there's like, 3%, and then, like you get 12. I think it was 12 to 15, AI was going on about. That's what I see happening. There is going to be someone or some group or some team, some, funded, star chamber or a bunch of retired military, forces of Green Beret of something, it's all right, it's on. And that is what I think is building up to and what's going to happen. And they, them, those need to do everything they can to try and ferret those guys out, to try and identify them, to try and see what DNA traits they have, what family lineage, what TV programs they watch.
How much testosterone they have them.
How much what?
How much testosterone is in them. Yeah,
right.
There's a problem.
They dial that down too. And they do, if they can, they are. And the one thing that I always been saying for the last decade or so, I'm going, look, I'm not worried about humanity marching on until they change us. They have to physically change us. They have to take humanity and dial down this and amp up that and get, and it's definitely fear. Fear is the most powerful persuasion, other than direct pain, I guess. The fear of something. Fear, fear, fear to you, fear, 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 fear. That's why I emphasize no fear. No fear, no fear, no fear. Because we've been at war with these machines, the machine or whatever. After a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We're still here until we're not. And the more rapid way to make we're not is to change us. To change us psychologically, to change us chemically, to change us endocrinally, to change us genetically, to change us, if they can, they are. I saw that it was, I can't remember what the number, it was pretty low. It was like 8% of the people took a COVID booster. And I go, whoa, okay, that's cool. Now, of course, they'll never tell you that, but it was, the encouraging number. Well, they don't want you to be encouraged. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I know how it's going to happen. You're going to piss off the wrong individual, the wrong family, the wrong group, and it's going to escalate. And then it's going to be identified as somebody caused it. Something caused it. Peter Thiel is moving to Argentina. Just saying. Palantir, and he goes to Argentina. America, we're going to safeguard America. Argentina. What the hell brought that on?
Right, exactly. And then the Trumps were going out into their own island out in the Mediterranean. They're all fleeing. We're starting.
This Mediterranean thing, and then the people. What was it? Albania or Armenia?
Albania, I believe.
Yeah, Albania. They're just like, nope. You're not, no, you're, no. And they're like, damn it, we got caught, So that's kind of what I'm advocating, what I'm prepping for, what I see is going to happen, and I don't know what else to do other than what I'm doing.
Gotcha. Well, look, that's kind of a segue, speaking of flashpoints or things that just kind of get out of hand. Kind of a change of pace here. And let me kind of have the floor for a little bit. I want to talk about this bricks and minifigs stupid thing, which there's a lot to say about it. And then we can finish up with whatever news of maybe something happens while we're on the phone. But so this takes a little explaining in the beginning, not to mention to try to explain why am I even talking about on the Trump Report, because it deals with Lego Star Wars. And no, it's not because I'm a Star Wars fan, just for the record. It's just coincidence. And Legos, which you all know, the little toy Legos, just be aware, for whatever reason, I don't even know, and I'm a Star Wars fan, but Lego Star Wars sets are a huge collectible. It's like on amongst a lot of younger people, even older people. They for some reason, they're in the Legos. I've never been, but if for some reason Star Wars and Lord of the Rings Star Wars sets are worth just a lot of money, like $1,000 for a Millennium Falcon Lego. And I'm thinking, it's just plastic. Like, what is this? It's not a true collectible. But anyway, so this is a big deal. And over the last, a decade or so, there's more specialty stores for Legos. And then around 2020, during the quarantine, Legos really took off. And by the way, I can hear that, Ernie, whatever that is. Can you turn that down? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, what was your question?
Can you turn that down? I can't hear whatever is going on.
Oh, I had my mic off, and I'm wondering what you're...
Yeah, so anyway, I was hearing that. So anyway, the point is, this thing with Legos, and bear with me, people, if you're new to this. So I have to set the stage about why this Lego thing is a big deal. But it starts off with that after 2020, for some reason, the Lego community took off. Just like many things changed during that time, the quarantine, I guess, I don't know. They got all their stimmy checks from the government, and they decided to spend it on Lego. So the prices went crazy on eBay, and now everyone wants to make it rich, collecting Lego or whatever. So there is a chain of stores. They're Lego resellers, and they're called Bricks and Minifigs. Bricks from the Legos that are little bricks, and minifigs, which is short for minifigures. Apparently, Lego little figure action figures are worth tons of money, whatever. So these stores are all around. It's a franchise based in, I believe it's Salt Lake City, right, which we'll get to. And so that's the headquarters, but they sell a franchise to whoever wants, some geeky person, which I'm a geek myself, but somebody who likes Lego. They decide to pay however much money for the franchise, and they get a franchise store. Well, anyway, there's like 5 of them or 4 of them here in Arizona alone, like in Phoenix, if you drive around, like in Mesa and such. So, what happened was there's this kid, and he's an activist. He goes by he's a YouTuber, and he goes by the name Reckless Ben. And I'm telling you, Ernie, you're going to be a big fan, and I'm going to give you some homework to watch. You will get such a kick out of this, and you're going to have so much to say about this by next week. But I'm just setting the stage. So this guy, he's like 20-something-year-old kid, and he's like imagine if 4409 and Ernest had a child together, which try to get that out of your head in a way. But if you can imagine that, that's who this kid is, right? He's got all the balls of 4409, if you're listening. Hey, buddy. And yet he's got the acumen of dealing with the law and how to be, let's just say, creative about making a point, like Ernest does. And so he's like a gonzo guy, and he admits he's reckless, and he doesn't always have the law slow him down if he thinks he's right or something. And he's always creative and always tries to be above the law. I mean, not above, but follow the law, but just be a little creative. So he's against cults, and he has shows usually about exposing cults and all. Well, somehow I guess he was looking for some new viewership, a new angle with his podcast. So he decided to put out a memo to his listeners and say, look, I want to use my skills of activism and all to help someone in need. So submit stories of people down in their luck, and if somebody needs any help. Kind of like on ABC News or whatever, the local news, if you need someone to help you out to get your money back for a refund somewhere. Well, turns out there's this story in Salem, Oregon. And here's where the story gets set up. And guys, by the way, I'm not going to do the entire story. It's hours. But it's one of those things where it starts off in one place and you think, okay, why the hell would I care about it? But it's a story that just grows and builds, and it brings up other things that you don't expect, right? And this is why it's part of a national discussion that just two weeks ago, none of us heard about it. And now it's like I would say at least half of even the conservative and libertarian podcasts are all getting in and discussing this. So that's why I thought it'd be worth bringing up. But what happened was there was this older man, he's like 80 years old, and he's, for whatever reason, he liked to collect Star Wars Legos. And so he had what was supposedly a $200,000 Star Wars collection or Lego collection. And he's been saving it for years, and he's 80, and he figured, you know what, times are tough. Before the collapse, probably, I'm going to sell it and give the money to my son. His son's like 40-something years old anyway. So he just figures, all right. So he goes to the store, Bricks and Minifigs, because they're very well known in the Lego community. And he puts it on consignment. And he says, here's my $200,000 thing. And by the way, they confirmed it was around $200,000 at the time. So everyone's on the same page of what the rough value would be. But it's a huge collection. I mean, it wound up making the newspapers locally, and it was in the Lego world, about this collection. So he puts it on consignment. This man, the old guy, he still owns it. He has the paperwork. He still owns it. But he'll get like 80% of everyone that's sold, and then the local franchise gets like 20%, something like that. Well, then what happened was, and this involves Trump. Believe it or not, Trump is part of this indirectly. A lot of you listening don't even know this. It turns out that the owner of the store, it's the lady, she has like blue hair. That kind of tells you all you need to know. She's up in Oregon. Well, it turned out she had to sell the store, her franchise, immediately. And suddenly corporate wanted to take a look and see whether they can take it. Well, it turns out, guys, the Trump angle, the reason she had to sell it, and a lot of people are not aware of this, is her husband. Her husband, who's a very creative author with these piercings in his eyebrows, but he's a smart guy. He had to leave the country because Ernie, you're going to love this, He's one of the main activists for Antifa, right? We're talking Salem, Oregon, and he's sort of like the Adam Kokesh. I'm not trying to insult Adam here, but out of respect, Adam is smart guy. He's an author. He did Freedom, self-published. He's on his own tours. He's educating people about issues of freedom and activism, like many in our community. Well, it turns out her husband is like the Adam on the left. And so he's written all these books on how to like push back on the police and how to fight. And I mean, like really full on anarchy stuff. Right. And he's safe up there in Oregon. And he's been writing these books and doing all this for 8-10 years during the whole Trump thing. But guess what happened about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? Trump won. And after he won, he's like, holy crap, I'm going to be a political prisoner soon. So he decided to leave the country. So that's what happened. This actually has to do with Trump. It doesn't, but it's just a funny coda. So the wife has to sell the store to take off with the husband to get away from Trump. So as that happens, the headquarters comes and they see, this is what's alleged, they see the Star Wars collection that's there and how much money is there. But the person who runs the store has a very long history of, let's just say, not doing things on the up and up. And in my opinion, and this is what also has a tag into this person, the CEO, let's just say, is following many, many traits of antisocial disorder, and which is another part to the story, because for those of you who always want to hear about us talk about sociopaths and antisocial, to see it unravel and completely documented in a case that has nothing to do with politics, except that little Trump angle I talked about, is fascinating to see. It's sort of like that documentary I've always advised, I don't know if Ernie's ever seen it, but it's called The Armstrong Lie, because let's just say Lance Armstrong has many, many traits. I cannot officially diagnose him since he's not my patient. But in my opinion, he has many, many of those traits of antisocial. And the documentary that you can find on Amazon or whatever is fantastic to see forgetting about biking, how sociopaths operate, how they act. And it's hard for a normie to understand who these people are. But these are our politicians and CEOs of companies, and other places too. So anyway, the guy who's running the whole headquarters from Salt Lake City seems to be maybe, let's say, antisocial. So he goes and I don't get into all the minutiae here, but they go and they kick out the woman who actually owned the franchise. They push her out, literally, it's on tape, right? And then they lock the door on her, and then now they have the entire store and everything that was in it, including this $200,000 Star Wars collection that was owed to somebody else. Well, anyway, they took it over, and then when the old man says, hey, well, where's my Star Wars collection? Am I still getting money? The new owners, which are now working with the franchise owner or the CEO guy, they said, what Star Wars collection? It's like, we don't have it. What are you talking about? It doesn't exist. Essentially, they stole this man's life savings in Lego Star Wars. Now, that in itself is, crappy story. It's not something we would normally talk about on Freedom's Phoenix. It's like, all right, so some thieves out there. But it's just what happened is this kid, Reckless Ben, heard about it. He decided, I'll take this case on. I'm not gonna rest until I get this old man's Legos back. And so he's had years of experience being a gonzo activist and knowing about technology, the legal system. He's like, this should be a pretty easy thing. Let me just figure out where the Legos are. Oh boy, right? Because first, none of them understand what an antisocial guy is. And of course, nobody knew at the time that, you might be dealing with a sociopath. So every single thing is going to be a lie. And what people are having a hard problem with is that well, anyway, so he winds up fighting these guys for months, and he records everything. And then he released, just 2 weeks ago, Ernie, this is going on for like a year or so. 2 weeks ago, this kid, Reckless Ben, drops his first of like 3-part video that's like an hour and a half long or hour long about this whole case. And it's a journey about him and his cadre of friends of activists trying to, just get this Lego back, but trying to track it down and all the mixed messages. But then all of a sudden the legal threats start happening. And then the cops start getting involved, right? And now you've got the cops that are pulling him over for all sorts of things. And they're pulling him over for fake traffic stops. They pulled him over another time for 3 hours looking for cocaine in the car. And these are all the cops in Salt Lake City, which is now bringing up the Mormon mafia, right? And all the stuff that people said didn't happen, like when you start watching the story, you're thinking, oh, well, it doesn't, if you follow the rules, everything plays out. But what's going on is you're seeing how the system really works or doesn't work. And I mean, this thing just gets out of hand where you're having, he got swatted with like 10 cops with like these ARs busting into his house looking for stolen Legos. I mean, you have this thing, and this kid though, he's so smart. He comes up with ways to, like, for instance, to make a lawsuit to try to challenge the owner to show his documentation about where the Star Wars Legos are. So he would incorporate himself. He made a lawsuit through small claims court, did everything above board, he had to serve one of the new owners. I'm not going to get into real detail, but he's sitting there trying to serve him, and the bad guy wouldn't come out of the house and kept calling his friends, who are police officers apparently, and they kept harassing Reckless Ben, who was in a public place trying to serve him. He even hired a woman to serve him and followed the rules of who can be a server, right? And so when the cops would come over and they ask him, like, why he's in the car, he would say, because I have to serve him with this paper. They wouldn't believe him, right? No one would believe this YouTuber kid. And he says, well, if you're really a server, if you're really here to serve, well, why don't you get a real server? And he says, I do. This woman's sitting next to me. He came with a process server. And then they didn't believe that. And then he pulls out the law and says, in the state of Utah, anyone who's over 18 years or old and is not affiliated with the case and is a citizen of the state can serve as a process server, right? I mean, so these cops are constantly getting thwarted because they think they're dealing with an idiot 20-year-old. And he acts a little disheveled. He doesn't seem on the surface that he has his act together, but he's brilliant. And he's constantly thwarting the system and trying to be creative and obviously get some clicks, but he's trying to make a point. Well, anyway, this thing keeps going and going. And towards the end, though, at the end of where it is currently, and I mean, everyone has been sued by everybody. He's been in jail. He's been held in custody for countless times. Well, now he's in Mexico because they put a warrant against him. So now he's down in Mexico. And then he created a GoFundMe to try to help the families. And this CEO of this Lego company is now trying to shut that down. Then you had Patreon that was trying to be shut down by the CEO. And the president of Patreon even made a comment and says, the bricks and minifig Lego people can suck it. I mean, the president of Patreon is coming out supporting not just Ben, but the broken system, and you're seeing how the wealthy and the connected and how the rule of law just doesn't really seem to work. But also you're seeing the power of the internet. You're seeing the power of social media, and you're witnessing activism, the type that I witnessed, to be honest with you, audience, that I saw with Freedom Phoenix when I first joined. I was kind of a newbie with some of this. I understood Austrian economics and all this from my old days, but I hadn't been around, and respectfully, I'd call it gonzo activism. And 4409 was a member of our group that he was one of many who did quite a bit of work. I don't want to make it all about him, but, brave people who found creative ways to make a point. But now you're seeing it all documented with GoPros and hidden cameras that are in your glasses. And I mean, this kid has figured everything out. And on top of that, every single time, Ernie, he was pulled over by the cops. And I think there must have been, I don't know, probably like 25 times at least in the series where he gets pulled over by the cops, probably even more than that. And most of it's not shown. He would then he would then ask the police department for the body camera footage. So he would the body camera footage and show what was going on to prove certain things. Well, then, then the cops stopped showing the footage. They started redacting all this footage as if why? I mean, you're doing a traffic stop. Why do the cops have to redact everything? And so the cops, again, probably thought this was an easy deal. You scare the kid away and it's all fine, but this kid wouldn't go away. And the lies that they told were getting compounded and compounded. So now they're redacting everything from their body cams. So then when all of a sudden they couldn't get the information, somebody hacked, because this whole thing's going viral, Ernie. And so now you've got like the anonymous people, and now they went and they hacked, I guess, the police server, and they got many of the files they got the original files that weren't redacted. And so now Reckless Ben gets that data and he's plugging it into, the rest of the case to find out what was really going on. And man, this is blown up now to the whole state of Utah. You have people revolting against the police force there, saying, "My God, we thought the Mormon Mafia was just a bad stereotype." And you've got Mormon people in the community coming up to the boards telling them we need an internal audit. We're scared of our own police department. We had no idea this was going on. But I don't want to keep rambling about it because I am, and Ernie's he's smoking something right now and he's chilled out because I know he's probably wondering why I'm bringing a lot of it up. But you haven't seen it. When you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to send you, Ernie, a link to an attorney who has his own podcast where he reviews, court cases, and he's a criminal defense attorney. A real high-end guy. He's kind of like a Mark Victor guy, right? And he's got a fun personality. So he's got a podcast he's doing for a while. Well, everyone kept telling him, you got to review this Bricks and Minifig Lego deal. And he's like, why? I'm a criminal defense guy. My podcast is on murders and this. Why am I dealing with this? And his own staff was like, you got to do the Lego thing. So he sits there and he just watches it and he comments on it live, the first episode. And it's just, this is the way this audience should watch this story, because you're watching it in the one window and you're listening to a criminal attorney go through step by step what Ben is doing, what he's not doing. And so I'm telling you, Ernie, I was like taking notes. It's a lesson in activism at its best. It's showing you modern activism with the new technologies going on. You're learning about the law in different ways or how it doesn't work. You're hearing about it from a criminal defense attorney with almost like looking over, an activist and what he's doing and not. And what I found by watching, and anyway, so that's just a great series to watch. I'll show you both for right now. There's an injunction already on the third episode. They won't even allow him to sell the third one. So the CEO of this Lego company seems to have the upper hand right now on paper, but the court of public opinion has blown up. And this whole company's probably just going to go bankrupt because every franchise owner around the country is getting death threats and people throwing bricks through the walls, and nobody will go to these stores. And the whole Star Wars Lego community is in revolt against this. Not that most of you care about that. But this has gone much larger. And what was fascinating listening to the attorney is the attorney was thinking, he kept saying, this kid is brilliant and this and that, but I don't understand. This could have been very easy. This kid has all the proof that the CEO people stole the Legos. I won't go into all the details, but he's got them dead to rights. Why doesn't he simply, hire a regular attorney? Or why didn't the father, the old man, just hire an attorney and say, look, I have a contract. I put these Legos on consignment. And yes, maybe there was a change of ownership of the franchise. But when you buy a company, a business, you buy everything. You buy the inventory, you buy the debt, and you buy whatever problems go along with that business, which is why you need to do due diligence. This should be a simple open and shut. Not to mention, there was a trail of where these Legos should be. So this should be open and shut. Well, the father, his son actually, was talking about, well, yeah, but when I tried to talk to attorneys, they're saying it's going to be $60,000 to start. You have this business that was threatening them, saying if you try to take us to court, we'll draw it out, and it's going to be millions of dollars. And even the attorneys that he went to looking for an attorney, they were saying, oh, yeah, but what this corporation has a certain corporation status in a foreign country in Europe. So now you have to deal with, with international law issues and, all this hanky-panky that corporations do to screw the little guy, and you have no way to fight back. And so this is why they turned to the YouTuber. But the attorney who was doing the podcast I was talking about, it's a great thing to watch. But in the beginning of the series, he was banging his head against the wall going, I don't understand why he just doesn't get an attorney and just follow the law. And you've got him dead to rights. And he was talking about a TIO, which is a temporary injunction order. He says you simply just throw a TIO and you stop the company from selling any more Lego until we can figure all this out. But, what we're dealing with on one hand is probably, in my opinion, a sociopath who every single thing is being turned upside down in lies. Then you have someone who's got millions of dollars, the Lego company's $500 million, and this is over $200,000. Right, $200,000 in lost Legos. And a lot of people don't understand why this company doesn't just, even if they can't find the Legos, just pay the father the $200,000. Why would you destroy your entire, business and your entire reputation over $200,000? And that's the quandary a lot of people are stuck in. They don't understand there must be another side to this. But if the person is an antisocial, as Ernie has learned as well, these people have no problem burning down a $500 million business over $200,000 if it means they have to say that they were wrong. They will never, ever admit defeat. And they will tank the entire thing and go down with the ship and they will destroy you along the way, any way possible. So you have to understand who these people are, which is fascinating, again, to see this whole story play out. But that last thing, though, is the attorney. He was talking about, again, why doesn't he just do X, Y, Z? Because, what he's going to think that the cops are corrupt, blah, blah, blah. And as the story goes on, even the attorney who's reviewing this on the podcast, his mouth keeps dropping open. And this is a criminal defense attorney. And he's going, wait a minute, that shouldn't happen. This doesn't make sense. I don't know why this is. And then you start to see the police corruption firsthand because of the hacker community getting these videos and the way that Reckless Ben has everything documented out. I mean, this kid is brilliant. He could probably be his own attorney. And so what you're really seeing, I think a meta point to this, aside from the Lego story and activism and technology, is the attorney himself is like, I don't understand, just follow the rules with this, and this is how it's set up. But the young generation, keep in mind, this is a young podcaster, Lego Star Wars, younger people, geeky people doing this. It's really what's left of the regular American folk. And what this Lego story is about is how effing broken this system is and lack of trust in anything. Because something that should be so simple, you have a contract, it's a consignment. It's like, this should be like an open and shut case that shouldn't spend more than 5 minutes in front of Judge Wapner. And yet it's turned into this entire thing that started because the people and every person involved who were younger already threw their hands up and said, there's no point in trying to fight this because I will lose. They will draw it out, the amount of money that things cost now, and then and it's a reflection, Ernie, in the audience of what we see today. I mean, you've got the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation. I mean, we're talking full on in front of our faces. We're seeing a pedophilia ring, an extortion ring. We're seeing, this whole thing, right? And we know it's been deep six, these stories. Project Veritas, of course, was showing how ABC News and Amy Werbach had the story, dead to rights, and then they tanked it there. We could go on, and this audience knows the whole story and how far back this has gone. But the normie community has now seen the Epstein case, when before they thought it was conspiracy theory, and now it's settled of what we know it somewhat occurred, but still, we put politicians in, like Dan Bongino, who swear that they're going to get to the bottom of it. And then they get a brain transplant, and they're telling us that we're the turncoats because we're looking into it. We have I mean, all of the men, I mean, not one person has been arrested over this, over Epstein in America, right? The women are still the victims, even though they voted for Donald Trump. They voted for him to try to get some peace, and Trump just craps on him and moves on and says it's all a hoax. And that way his son can marry Epstein's, daughter, or Epstein's, accountant's daughter, or whatever it is. I mean, it's just, and I don't want to make it just about Epstein, but that's like I often call it the final boss in corruption, which is why it meant so much to so many people. But we can see this across the board of, just countless stories, the voting irregularities, what happened to, what's his name? Was it Pratt, whatever, in California? I don't want to get Ernie all hung up, all, sidetracked on voting rules and how much it doesn't work. But I mean, the average American sees this in everywhere they go. And so something as simple that should be a small claims issue, if that, turns into this because nobody even wants to step foot into an attorney to even pay him $1 when you realize the whole thing, at least the perception, is it just doesn't matter. God, I can't keep sounding like Ernie. And that's what it's turning into. That's what this Lego thing is really saying. And it was interesting, and not to reiterate too much, but that top criminal attorney, I know I am, but the criminal attorney, to see him go through that process himself, like, you're not doing it right. Like you're doing all of this, Ben, for $200,000. You should have done X. But he himself is an older man, even though he's, a professional, but he doesn't grasp where the younger community is coming from, how desolate they feel, how disempowered that they feel, how our legal system is so convoluted and so corrupt that it's just, I'm going to turn to a YouTuber to get any kind of justice. And so that's what we have now. This justice system is so injustice and so expensive and convoluted that you have to now do the power of the people, general public opinion. So that guy may never get his so why would you go with a court case that's going to cost you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars over years and years, and chances are,
why must you persist?
Exactly. I remember you saying that earlier today. I was thinking about this very case. And by the way, the judge, of course, is going to be a Mormon judge, most likely, in Utah. Oh, you're going to love this one. And guess who the judge is who's assigned to be going over this case for this whole Lego company, which is right there in Salt Lake City? It's the exact...
somebody's cousin, friend...
Oh, no, it probably is. No, it gets better than that. The judge, this is another political angle, the judge who's overseeing this whole case is the same judge who's over the Charlie Kirk case. Because it happened in the same district, the same area, the Charlie Kirk assassination. So now you've got the Charlie Kirk angle into this. Like, this thing just keeps, there's so many angles to this. But that's what this represents. A lot more meta and all the problems we're finding. And there's so much interest in this. Plus, it's not political.
Why was this such? I mean, this has been a thing on the internet. There's been a lot of conversation about it, and I have heard of it. All I know is there was like an older couple that saved up a bunch of Lego Star Wars stuff to the point that a couple $100,000 worth, and with this company they give them consignment. It's like furniture on consignment, and they worked out whatever percentage. They retire, they leave, they sell out to somebody else, and then, and it's gone, So it became this big, this is ours, where's our money, give it back, ouch, quit it. So then some YouTuber takes on this case to chronicle it and show the corruption of whatever.
No, he just tried to get it back. He didn't think it was going to turn into this. He really didn't.
Well, I mean, it's content. I mean, he's going through and getting whatever benefit, and that's where you find out what's the motivation. Well, it's a justice thing, and he gets a lot of clicks, and people are supportive, and it's Lego and Star Wars. You put those together, you got an audience, You
get Phranq.
Yeah, you got Phranq all excited and going on about for 20 minutes. But the main thing of this that you're bringing up is the corruption and the injustice in the system. And this is what I'm talking about. It may not even be the person that won't go to the back of the bus. It's the person sitting next to him and, the Jack Reacher character that, no, we're not, allowing this to happen. The injustice of it all kind of thing. So it's obvious to me that these kinds of things always find their legs because of the sense of justice that human beings have. And they will send, it's a trucker convoy in Canada. They'll, give, send, go, whatever this, or Patreon that, or do. But that's where those attack. And that's what they go. And they change laws, and they change court procedures, and they change. And one of the things that I did, it was if the government is required to do something in law and they don't do it, or they're prevented from doing something and they do it, you can do a special action straight to the Supreme Court. Well, I use that. I'm going, they're being bad. Well, you're doing it wrong. No, I'm not. This is a rule civil procedure in Arizona, this right here, and they do it. Damn it. We hate when he does that. So it was never what I thought I was going to get any money or whatever. I was just trying to do it as cheaply as possible, skip to the end, and have people understand what was going on. We did it on the Diamondback baseball stadium. We did it on when they were doing the Cardinals stadium through a bunch of crap that they were doing. We did it on different initiatives that they would do all kinds of different new financial requirements and so on. We did it on voter registration. We did it on.
Yeah, the firearms at the TSA. Remember that? That was infamous.
Yeah. Well, we covered that, but that was another guy. That was Peter. But, what was his name? Peter, he's a neurosurgeon, or a researcher at Barrows, whatever. And they just pissed him off. And he just, all right. So he took his AR-15 and sat at the Sky Harbor International Airport Starbucks, got a coffee. He's one of those guys. But anyway, so that was a thing. So we cover this stuff because there's a sense of justice that people have and are interested in. They learn something. What is the issue? What is the argument? Is it about Legos? No. It's about a corrupt system. And it's about how you can use young people with an audience and access to the internet. And I have been really good over the past couple of years because I only have within real driving distance, an hour and a half away, the dealership that I bought my Kubota tractor at. Well, the service department sucks. Everybody there is semi-nice, but the techs and so on, and it goes to the top. It's a family-owned, multiple outlets of the one kid that has a operation manager kind of sucks. I mean, you could tell that this starts at the top. This is allowed because there's, not enough good management kind of thing. And it was so bad, and I trust them so little, I have to go and check everything that they do all the time. Well, finally it gets to the point to where I'm like, look, you guys want me to pay another $3,000 for a 2-year extended warranty on this, and you guys are just, a lot of problems. So I love the tractor. It does fine, and it's really not the tractor's fault. It's them screwing with it and messing up and not doing stuff. It's just really bad. So finally, we have Occupy the Land. I share with them, all right, let me give you what you're dealing with. I'm a talk show host. I have a news site. We are featuring the tractor in Occupying the Land, doing stuff, and Pirates Without, kind of, and I like the tractor. Kubota's been working really well, but you guys suck. And I feel that I'm doing you a favor by highlighting where I see the discrepancies in your ability to take care of me, okay? This is, I'm not blaming the girl sitting there scheduling, managing, doing the computer or whatever. I want to talk, because before I even bought it, it was sat down with the manager and the sales manager and the parts manager and the service manager. And there's like 4 of us in there. And I go, look, I'm getting this. This is what's going to happen. I know it's going to come down the service. So, take care of me. I'm your new best friend. Well, it got so bad, and the sales guy, that is the only one that, he's my therapist. I go, look, man, you guys are killing me, and you're missing out on. And there were big complaints from all the farmers and everybody that's out there on the service of this and that, and they're behind, and it's going to their other outlets that are miles away, and doing, it was a thing. Well, finally I'm going, look, you have reviews on this and this and this and this and this online. I have not been a dick. As a service to you and the other people, I tell this story, and I give them the story. This is my first experience. This is what happened. This is how it cascaded into this. This is what you charged Kubota for that. That wasn't the problem. You charged me, didn't fix it, yada, 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 yada. And I go, this is so powerful, this story, but I have no desire to let's lay waste to you, especially when you're the only one in driving distance to do warranty work on this anyway. I'm not really doing myself any better. It's like yelling at the waitress, expecting them not to spit in your food kind of thing. So I'm just going, this has to be fixed. We're escalating this to, I'm going to another one. I'm driving an extra, half hour away to go to Casa Grande to have them. I'm just saying, so I'm done. Oh, no, we got it fixed. We're doing, what happened is all of me articulating this helped them get rid of the bad guys. This guy needs to be gone. This guy needs to be gone. This person needs to be given more authority. They have the responsibility, but not the authority to. I'm kind of giving them, my view on a lot of stuff. So then finally, they got a new sale. I was on my 4th service manager. So it was from the top. It was the threat of me taking, because they, see what I'm doing out on the land. I show them, I go, here's a video. This is why I need this way. This is why I need that way on the tractor. This is why this is a problem, and you need to fix it, that kind of stuff. So they started to see that they're not going to get out of this. They had nothing to stand on. And there was all kinds of other weird stuff going on. So they brought in, the big guy that's going to take care of business, and so I'm holding back. And I'm like, all right, this creative bitching, they're going to fix it. Fine, fix it. So the salesperson, the woman I'm doing the scheduling the service, the part, and they're always ordering the wrong part. It's the wrong size. It's the wrong thread. It's the wrong. I mean, it was so obvious. It was from the top. You're not doing them any favors by not being diligent and insistent on service, especially when you're paying gazillions of dollars. This was something that I got from a CBS Good Morning Sunday program, God, in the 80s or something when I was younger, that he's going, we're not doing ourselves any service by not being adamant and demanding the service of someone, because if you don't, it just keeps getting worse, and your entire country just cascades into freaking toxic wasteland, which is what's happening. So when you have these stories of activists or people with some kind of pull or power or influence or permanency, this is one reason I go, look, man, I do this. The internet's permanent. I mean, we got to get this fixed, or at least warn other people for not doing. They get their sales department filled up with people wanting to buy, but don't bring it back here for a service kind of thing, because people do check. I check. Well, what happened was they had it on a company wide, but I didn't know that you drill down to that location. Whoa, damn, man, it's got some issues. So this kind of justice, this kind of influence was not available before. At the best, you had some attorney that knew, some media guys or some television station of customer support of whatever the hell. So that's the only time you ever get anything changed. Well, now it's the control of that narrative. Can you complain? Well, if it's about government or some agency or a Doge thing or them wasting money or whatever, boom! You're deplatformed, you're gone after, you don't get access, you get fined, you get all this kind of stuff. Well, here you have an example of the Lego thing. Is the only reason I was interested in it at all, and it just repeats a story, and it got Phranq all excited because they had Legos and Star Wars. But it's just anytime you have someone, it's like Candace Owens going on about Charlie Kirk, and picking Succession and not being for Israel, and then Erica and Bibi.
But Ernie, there's something else going on here, though, and Candace is like the bridge between what I'm getting to is, and this is not to take away from Phoenix or many of us in this audience or just activists in history, but one of the conflicts I've had with Ernie is as frustrating as it might be. Many of us have been early to the story with government corruption and voting irregularities, and maybe the medical system is not all it's cracked up to be, and all these things.
Resistance is not futile.
But how many of these concepts? Let's just take an easy one. The media doesn't always tell you the truth. let's just start with that one. Media bias. Well, that's putting it lightly. I mean, how many of us have banged our head about this for decades trying to talk to our families and friends? How many of us were said, "Oh, you're just cynical, you're a conspiracy theorist," or whatever? We've heard it all. I mean, maybe if you're a Republican, eventually they start to see media bias, that one's pretty easy when you're a Republican. You can see it versus the Democrats. But many of us in this community, we saw it at a whole higher level, right? I mean, a whole different level. It wasn't just they, them, those versus each other, the uniparty, complaining. But there was many other things going on. Forgetting about the JFK files, like whatever happened to that back in the day. I mean, why did they have to suppress that for 40 years and now 50 years or whatever? I mean, we go on and the 9/11 issues. But yet when we heard about Epstein, but all of this was conspiracy theories, how people looked at it, because the average person couldn't believe that the media could lie blatantly into your face, that the people were not really in control of the information narrative that they believed in their head, that the history that they thought was wrong. Or, the Soviet Union, now, of course, they use propaganda with Pravda on their people, but not America. We have the First Amendment. That'd be wrong. We have Peter Jennings and Ted Koppel. I mean, come on, they're gumshoe reporters. And when all the news networks are telling us the same thing at the same time, that must be because it's the truth. That would make sense. They're all telling me the same thing. It's got to be true. They can't wrap their head that the opposite might be true, that they're all getting orders from a single source. Operation Mockingbird as an example. I mean, that's such a reach and 180 degrees of what they were thinking. Now, our community wrestled with it ourselves. Many of us have lost friends over it. Many of us have maybe become depressed or turned to substance abuse because it gets so damn depressing and frustrating, and you feel like that you're in your own little bubble, you're in your little world, and of an island. You're right into yourself, but what to do with that information? It's harder to have relationships with people, especially finding a woman if you're a guy who's open-minded enough to this sort of thing. So, I mean, we've lived through this, but it takes, I often say, having less than 1% of our type of community understanding this, it's important, but it's not going to move the needle. You need like a critical mass. And there's different percentages of this. Ernie even asked Grok about the 15%. Even Grok knows about a 15% rule. When you get to a certain level, then it propagates. It's almost like if you're into investing, $1 million saved. If you get to $1 million, apparently suddenly once you get to $1 million, that's when the compounding interest makes you more than your day job. So everything flips. It takes so much work to get to $1 million, but once you get to $1 million, just the way the math works, it switches. And that's kind of what it is here. It takes that much time to get people exposed to this, but once you hit that critical mass, it builds on itself. And we've seen that quite a bit since 2015 or 16 with Trump. That's where the Trump report, a lot of this came from. As frustrating as it is for our community, we've been saying this stuff for years and all this. Yeah, and Ron Paul, and you saw what they did to Ron Paul and the inability for us to fight back as much as we could. I mean, we definitely broke some ceiling glass along the way, but Donald Trump took all of that, the Tea Party movement, the Ron Paul movement, and he was able to granted, he's not at the level of Ron Paul, we get that, but he took that energy and was able to concentrate it, and he understood how to potentiate it through the narrative machine, supersized it, and here it is, 10, 15 years later, whatever it is, the whole Trump world, not to make this about Trump right now, but, when you go back for Thanksgiving dinner, most of your relatives don't think you're that crazy. They're sounding like you. I mean, it's pretty odd when I have my relatives all sounding like me, and I just don't have to say anything. I just get to enjoy my Thanksgiving dinner. They're all talking about how, the doctors screwed them over, and they don't trust this, and the media's lying, and the voting system, and we could go, and our foreign policy run by another country. I mean, all of this stuff, Epstein, all of this is. I feel like I'm hanging out with libertarians now. So it's that critical mass when it opens up, then you get the change. That's what it takes time to get there, but then this flip switches.
But they got a plan B through Z of doing whatever they want.
So with all that said, that is the setup of why this Reckless Ben Lego story is so fascinating, because to me, this is an expose to normies another level, like about how the doctors don't always look out for you, whatever. Now you're seeing how the common law, how when you hear people say, oh, the cops could be corrupt, or this could happen, or this or that, and they say, oh, no, you just follow the rules. You follow the rules and get yourself an attorney and do it like this. It all works out for you. There's still justice and all. But now you're seeing what happens with an innocent kid who's documenting everything, who's really nice, who's smart, and he's showing you the process of how the world really works when you try to follow it. And it's waking up. It's like a critical mass learning for our audience. I mean, if 4409 would see this, he'd be laughing his ass off. He'd be like, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, he's like a comrade, a brother in arms. But for the young people, for normies now, who are not getting sucked into this for political reasons. Now, with all due respect to libertarians and 4409, as much as we're trying to show how the world works, or how voting irregularities, or how they kick you off the ballot for third parties and signature BS like they did to me when I ran for Senate. I mean, we could go all day, but the problem is when you try to show normies what the system does, they often discount you because they think it's political, right? Because if it's about the Libertarian Party, a lot of times their defense is, well, you're just upset because your guy's not getting in there, right? So they just think it's that. It's kind of like the court case with the black guy that put the knife in the white kid. It's just everything's racism. You have to spin everything. Everything is through a racist lens, even though it shouldn't be. Well, that's how people see the politics. When you talk about sociopaths, I rarely ever bring up, if ever, sociopathy and antisocial disorder with specific politicians, ever. Because the minute you do, people just think that's a cliche. It's like calling someone Hitler. Oh, they're a sociopath. Well, no. Now, when I say it, I mean it as a doctor, for as much as I can analyze. But, there's always that political overtone for people. But this has nothing to do with it. It's like Legos. It's an old guy getting screwed over by the evil corporation like you see in a Disney movie sometimes. And that's, and the wholesome ones, like the bad news bears kind of people getting together to stop the bad, the real estate developer kind of thing. That's kind of what this is. And so people are seeing the system in a documentation in a way that we couldn't do before because we didn't have the technology to do so. And it's going mainstream for normies to see what people in Freedom's Phoenix have been dealing with, and not just us. But to be fair, people in Antifa, for instance, I mean, people, all kinds of activist groups doing certain things, and you see how the system says no, even though when on paper you're supposed to be able to do something, but it doesn't mean it's true, right? I mean, so a normie says, but the wall says this. I mean, they wouldn't not do it. That'd be wrong. But then you see it, and no political overtones. So I just want to be aware, and he's someone who understands activism and promotes a lot of this. I know it's kind of out of our wheelhouse, but this is a moment. This is a teachable moment over this Lego deal for all the normies and young people who I think are going to have another understanding of what's going on at a time that's very important as we're going through this transition with AI and the economy collapse and blah, 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 and whatever's going to happen politically. So anyway, I will send you those links. I highly recommend, or we can talk tonight about it too if you're interested, but I highly recommend. I know it's a lot of hours, but once you get into it, you're going to go, oh, if nothing else, grab the popcorn.
What is it going to tell me? That government's bad? I mean, they're really, 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 really bad. Look at this, it's bad because it's Star Wars and Lego. I mean, I see this over and over and over.
You know what? Just try a watch. And if you really hate it, fine. I know. It's like, well, what's the point, Frank? If nothing else, 30, think of it as an enjoyable movie. Just get the popcorn and you see this process play out. I think I'd be fascinated to hear your thoughts on it next week. If you get that bored, I can't imagine you're going to be bored with it. I'm just trying to make you cool, Ernie. I'm trying to keep you in the cycle. That's all. I'll give you the last word. I have to get going. But any other highlights in the news you want to review? I know it's been kind of a slow week from that perspective, but any other highlight for you?
Are you kidding? There's so much. I can't even keep track of the crap.
Well,
I mean, it's just
trying to find a highlight in all of this. That's the problem.
Okay, what do we
go ahead?
What are we doing here? Let me hit refresh.
I mean, we talked about first the economy, and it was crypto and the bond yields. We talked about that last week and for this week. All
right, let me just do the headlines real quick without comment. How Belfast just exposed the West's biggest problem, whatever you think that is. It's going to be immigration of whatever. Mike Huckabee wants to silence Tucker Carlson. Shocking. Breaking. U.S. resumes strikes on Iran. A clean exit is unlikely. Tucker and John Mersheimer react. Blind submission to authority is caused by bad parenting. The world's largest oil tankers are being ordered at a record pace. So there's a whole bunch of course, U.S. don't make ships anymore, so it's all Chinese. Martin Armstrong, Netanyahu wants the U.S. to pay in dollars and blood. We were told the Iran war would be quick, in and out, a couple of weeks. Instead, it keeps dragging on. Martin Armstrong, who says he warned 3 presidents before this, explains why. Iran saw the decapitation strategy coming and rebuilt its state. What they did is they decentralized everything, so it doesn't matter who they take out. You know, there's an ideology that was behind whatever. So, you know, it's just, we're always fighting the last war. Middle East, U.S. says it's completed latest attacks on Iran. President Trump calls off new strikes on Iran. Trump warns Iran bigger, more powerful bombs tonight. The U.S. government is becoming increasingly dependent on private investors. All this is just blah, 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 blah. This way, that way. I put both up. All of the ideas and all of the analysis on each, you know, what the hell is going on. Whatever the hell they want. It's just, you know, confusion is a weapon as much as anything else. SpaceX IPO, building the infrastructure of the future. And we're going to take your money and do it whether you want it or not. You know, a measure of our encirclement. Well, you know, you can figure out what that's about. Alarming. Nebraska situation is spreading. Dust Bowl 2.0. Drought around Central Mid-America and the Southwest, so that's a thing. But it may be changing. And could it be weather wars? Could it be them doing weather? Could it be our guys doing the weather? I don't know. If it benefits them, yes. Tulsi Gabbard, to declassify COVID cover-up and Havana syndrome documents before she leaves. All right, that might be interesting. Third worldization, the slow burning shit hits the fan of America. Goes on about a lot of stuff we've been talking about. Federal court overturns historic fluoride ruling as Trump administration fights to keep fluoride in the water. What the shit? And where's RFK Jr. on this thing? Mm-hmm. Artificial general intelligence is here, and society isn't ready. Peter Diamandis on Tamburri show. Trump is trapped by Israel, and this is about to get much worse. Redacted with Clayton Morris. Let's see some tech stuff, some gardening stuff. Man jailed for a month despite flock showing he was 5 miles from crime scene. Cop seemingly ignored the flock camera's timestamp to justify the arrest. Elon Musk is selling the boldest story the world has ever heard. We're going to have universal high income. You know, and then, you know, there's a bunch of number of U.S. home sellers hits the highest level in 6 years. You know, that's not going to be good. Chinese firm to deploy 100 humanoid robots to households for daily chores. We're starting to get robots in the house. It's like your Roomba with legs. Here it comes. Belfast attack sparks international outrage with demands for immediate deportations. Taiwan test fires U.S. mobile launchers into waters directly facing China for first time. Just show we can, I guess. Whatever. Has the African century begun? Yeah, they're going to get exploited too, even more than they have been. NATO country halts arms to Ukraine under new Eurosceptic prime minister. Well, we'll see what that turns into. China unveils nuclear-powered floating hub for green shipping. Whatever the hell that means. But this, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And will Trump break JFK's agreement on Cuba, which was we wouldn't invade them and all that kind of stuff? Battle of the Missiles, the Apache scam. This helicopter, which is why was it there and what was it doing? Did it really get shot down? Is it a false flag? Is Israel? I don't even pay attention anymore. I don't care. And then Mish Shedlock, a guy that writes, a lot on, he hates electrification of everything. He likes cars and does some economic stuff. I don't agree with everything, but he has some research. He goes, Trump and Elon Musk fuel preposterous vote fraud claims in California. What? Yeah, there's so much. I'm like, all right, I want him to be on record. You can say what you want here. Pratt on track for L.A. mayor showdown with Bass. And then they say, nope, he lost. It's all done. And then we got Candace and Rick Sanchez in Russia. So, it's this kind of stuff. There's a bunch of others I didn't hit on. But we cover a wide range of stuff. And with all of this, what is it that you get from this is just half a day. This is just some, and we got an afternoon dispatch. What happens is you get the idea that you're not being told the truth. It's all about wars and control and AI and, there's a club and you ain't in it. There is going to be this authority compliance kind of thing starts at home. Bad parenting. You train them; they own themselves. Are you questioning an authority? Are you no? So it's getting to me in this way that I see us putting a lot more effort into trying to coordinate the efforts and focus of those that get it. And if you haven't got it by now, you're not going to get it. I remember Peter Schiff in 2010 or something like that. He goes, there's a truth button on your computer. You just got to push it. It's just that you can't get people to push it. They don't know which button to push. Which one's the truth button? They're not looking for the truth. They're looking for confirmation of their bias. They're, team whatever the hell. Oh, yeah, Don and I watched, it's a third game or fourth game, whatever. It was, they were down 29 points in the first half. First quarter they were down like 20. It was ridiculous. The Spurs are kicking the living crap out of the Knicks. And they came back and won by 1 point at the very end. It was amazing. All right, I'll keep watching it. At least they're still playing hard. This has been an interesting series. We've watched all three games. And I was like, damn. But what kind of distraction is that? What's the narrative of that? What is, it's just, and Donna's going, it's just, man, it just seems like ratings. Who's controlling this? So I don't see a solution coming out of any institution or group. They always get infiltrated, they get taken over, they get prosecuted, they get. It's going to be like why I let you go on about the Lego thing, because it's going to be a kid like that. It's going to be, a Nick Shirley. It's going to be a Veritas project. It's going to be, and then it's going to be Belfast. It's going to be welcome support of a group of people going out and taking down all of the surveillance cameras. It's going to be the camera fraud thing that we witnessed here in Arizona. There was a big opposition that was centered out of Freedom's Phoenix. These guys, man, they would not let it go, and they bankrupt. The whole point of this was Redflex, which is the company that was, doing it and giving a cut to, or they're getting their cut or whatever, doing all these tickets. What people didn't know, a lot of things that we were making them aware of and how to deal with this, and they went bankrupt and they left. And then we get them going into Chicago and people calling us, how did you get rid of whatever? But it's constant. You think they're not back? Of course they're back. They're never going to stop until they're totally dismantled. What is their narrative, their ideology? And it's going to come from people they just wouldn't leave alone, like the Amish doing raw milk or selling, cows or raising other people's cows. It's just stupid stuff. Here it comes. And it's going to be built up and they go, people just let it happen. No, they're just, what do I got to do? How much am I willing to? It's going to get pushed to the point that they piss off the wrong grandpa, the wrong Karen, the wrong teenager. And then we'll highlight it. But I'm trying to avoid it as much as possible. Well, I got to get this all processed and so on, and then I'll see you tonight and meeting you at the theater, right?
Yep, we'll do that. So look forward to it. It was a nice, relaxing show. We did not, yell at each other one time. I feel bad for the audience. So
they didn't get their entertainment. They didn't get Belfasted.
Yeah. We didn't talk about culture and voting today much. So anyway, no, thanks, Ernie. I'll keep in touch with you later, and I'm sure it'll be another interesting week. Talk to you then.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's hard. I want to go out with this. It's hard to focus on anything like the war. It's all bullshit. On the IPOs, it's all bullshit. On the Federal Reserve, it's all bullshit. It's nothing about what you think it is other than control. It's a control grid. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. And you just have to extract yourself from it.
Yeah. You know what? I appreciate you bringing that up. I was talking to some other friends, some people that you and I know and such. I was asking them what they've been following, or sometimes I'll ask someone on a certain week, what do you think is a highlight? Because I do write down some notes for the podcast today. And there's just each time we do the Trump report, there's so many things going on in the world. Obviously, there's a ledger on Freedom's Phoenix for the news, but I also look for highlights of the week. Sometimes, a little bit more on the political side that you don't care about. But there's, we're trying to have a back and forth that you and I do. But I'm always looking for the theme rather than talking about 20 different things. Like, what's the theme of the week or whatever. But I'll tell you, I talked to some of these other friends, and they're not even following anything. No one's following the news. I don't find people watching much at all or caring. It's the infamous, it just doesn't matter. And I feel like that apathy is rampant. It's almost like whatever was left of people caring, whatever they had left in them, from whether it's the Ron Paul movement, the Green people for Ralph Nader, whether it's Democrat, Republican, I feel like it's just collapsed. There's no more air left in the balloon. So with
climate change is gone.
With Spencer Pratt, what's happening to him in California. I mean, if that happened 3 years ago, I'm sure we'd be talking about it the whole time, and we talking about the California voting laws and what went on there and this and that, and maybe as much as you would still say, hey, it's rigged, but I'm sure half the audience or more would be still invested in it and track it, and maybe there'd be some protesters or kind of what happened with 2020. There would be some support, but for so many reasons, nobody cares. Is that I would say more than half of Americans, if not even Republicans, don't care about the Republican Party to even lift a finger. The whole voting fraud stuff has just gone so large, it just doesn't matter. People don't have the resources or the time anymore. And I think people are just they're either finding distractions, which is what happens when these end of economies and all occur. And also they're reunifying. What I didn't mention about the whole Lego thing is I told you that the couple that sold the store or like diehard leftist activists for Antifa, right? Well, they actually have a GoFundMe for their legal matters because that sociopath, or what I think might be a sociopath, CEO, he's suing them now for millions of dollars, and they live in a tiny little apartment house, in Oregon. So he's going after everybody and going out the ship with it. But they have a GoFundMe. Well, guess who's funding and contributing to this Antifa ringleaders GoFundMe? Many conservatives and libertarians and Trump people who are saying, you know what, we may disagree on politics, but the system's so damn broken. Here, man, I'll give you $10 for your legal fees because this system is that corrupt. So that's another part to the story. So many parts to that story. But no, I agree with you. I think everything is so fraudulent and there's no energy left to fight anymore, especially people have been fighting for the Trump thing for 10, 15 years. Libertarians have been fighting for a lot longer than that, and you just get to the point, like, you just have to take care of yourself, and it just doesn't matter to put any more effort into door knocking and getting signatures like Ron Paul helped to, try to instruct people for precinct committeemen, really, to do what? It's just like you said, it doesn't matter at this point. And so to follow any of the news, what is the news? We all know it's propaganda. And what Donald Trump's going to say, we're going to go to war or not go to war again, just so that his buddies all can make a quick buck on the stock market. I mean, that's what this has turned into. I mean, that's what it's turned into. It's every 2 days, it's something new from Trump about a threat or this or that. And it's all manipulation. And it's so disgusting as people can't afford their food that, there is that disconnection that leads to apathy.
What do you think? We got this UFC.
And then it'll be anger, and then it's going to be famine, and like you say, a food thing, which really generates that anger, and then that flashpoint moment, and I think we can sense it, unfortunately.
The UFC, extravaganza on the White House lawn thing. There's that. The 4th of July celebration, you have a bunch of performers said, "Now we're not doing it. We're out." And
and Trump got
seems
booed.
so bread and circus Roman Empire fall stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought, Ernie. It's just like the Coliseum. We're gonna have the UFC, a bunch of fighters like banging each other on the lawn of the White House. Mainly because it's the only group of people, the so-called warriors, who can even put up with Trump and aren't going to boo him out of there. He goes to the NBA deal, the Knicks, whatever you're watching. I'm not into sports. And then, and he gets booed there, right? I mean, he can't, and he can't even have the 250th anniversary that I was originally thinking of, partaking in a few years ago. And he can't even get the acts. The acts are all dropping out. This country can't even celebrate its birthday. It's like a messed up family with so many family dynamics and strife that you can't even get together for Thanksgiving, and everything is blowing apart. We can't even unify for the 250th. We can't even, and Trump now can't even get it on the lawn without problems. So, yeah.
He's going to get a ballroom.
Thanks to you and your tax money, Ernie.
He needs a ballroom, man. I thought it was going to be privately funded. Of course not. Now, we need it because and it's all this. I want to say this, and then we'll wrap it up. But
yeah,
there was a guy. God, what was his name? I think it was Rusty Bowers. He was a legislator here in Arizona, Mormon guy out of the East Valley, Mesa, and I think he was an artist. That was his profession. But he was, well respected, and he was, pretty conservative and, not as openly scumbag as most, but, I mean, he had his issues. When I was in opposition to the baseball stadium being taxpayer funded and had lawsuits and initiatives and all that, it was a thing. So the Diamondback, we knew that when they got it done, it had to sell out every home game and make $180-something in ticket sales and profit on, hot dogs or whatever per seat to even break even and not go bankrupt. And this is after they spent $350 million, whatever, of taxpayer money to build the stadium for them to then have the Diamondback franchise. So we were screaming, you guys, man, we just wanted it very clear that we knew it was going to go bankrupt. Well, after the Diamondbacks beat in their first, second, third, within 2-3 years, beat the New York Yankees and won the World Series. And then went bankrupt. That's how bad it was. That's how stupid it was. That's how obvious it was. Rusty Bowers, the legislator, he goes, and they're all going on about, Phoenix can never be a real city until we have, a hockey team, a baseball team, a, football team, a basketball team. And we had, basketball, Phoenix Suns been around for a while, and Jerry Coangelo, which was the owner of the Diamondbacks and what got the deal going. And I remember Rusty saying this. Now, that's the background, the context for this. They were going, somehow we're not big city enough. We can't draw in enough or get the right people enough, or discretionary income doesn't go to the family restaurant down. It's got to go downtown to the baseball stadium or whatever. And Rusty said something about we have such a void in our character, in our chest, that we think we can fill it with a stadium. There's something we're missing as a community, as a culture, as the politicians, the cities, the whatever. We are been so narrative controlled and convinced that there's something wrong with us because we don't have a baseball stadium. And we're trying to fill that void with taxpayer monies and build a baseball stadium. You're never going to accomplish that way. I never forgot that he would even make that observation that we have as humanity, as a community, as a state, a city, or whatever, that a country, that we have a void. There's something that needs to be filled, and we look for force and coercion to take other people's property, money, discretionary income, divert from this to that, to be able to how it's sold is we will be more and feel better we're on team jersey something, as opposed to being free, as opposed to being less regulated, as opposed to being more a pioneering spirit, which is what Arizona was. And I saw it changing, certainly in my observation, since forever. I mean, it progresses, but it definitely, from the time I was paying attention in the late 80s to now, you could see the corruption seep in. It was just because they can. And we allowed it. The only way is to get out of the game. Stop paying attention. Get out of the grid. Start using more private currency. Get off to where you don't need to have there. You got your own stuff. You're not paying taxes on food you grew until you do. I mean, they'll come up with that sooner or later. But this is so obvious what's going to happen, and we're in the end game, and it's going to reset. A lot of things are going to reset. I'm just hoping that there's going to be a remnant left of those that understand it's about self-ownership, and they're not going to be willing to give that up. And you're starting to see that around the world in various different forms. The legitimacy of institutions, of governments, of corporations, of big pharma, of big tech, of military-industrial complex, the financial industrial complex, the tech industrial complex, MIC, TIC, and FIC. I mean, these are all starting to erode away any support of these systems. Voting is just to give you the illusion that you have a choice. And when you have things that was so predictable, like what's going to happen in California mayor race, to make sure that Phranq guy, because you got to choose from communist candidate A or communist candidate B, and definitely not him, even though he was ahead and they did the corruption. Or what are you going to do? And then you have Mitch Shedlock because he hates Trump and Elon so much. Oh, they're crazy people because they think there's election fraud. I think you're freaking nuts if you think there wasn't.
And if anyone doesn't believe you, just say Lego Star Wars, and that's going to be the segue to this. I'm telling you, it's the bridge. All right, man.
We're going to find out over time if Phranq is right on that one. Oh, my God.
I'm going to send it to you today. All right, have yourself a good day, Ernie. You got a lot of stuff to do, and I look forward to the movie tonight, hang out with Tarzan. All right, bye-bye.
Peace, guys. Bye.